Like I owed you one from yesterday. That Justin Timberlake stuff. So we'll go back to a classic today. It was on this day in 1982 that the Steve Miller Band took this song and stayed there for 2 weeks. It was a 2-week run at #1 on the U.S. singles chart for Steve Miller and his band, Abracadabra. This day in 1982, 43 years ago, this 4th of September. That happened to be the third U.S. #1 for the Steve Miller Band. It was also a #2 hit in the UK. I saw Steve Miller in concert at what was formerly, I don't think, is it still Molson Park in Barrie? Anyway, I saw him in concert there. It was part of a big day-long concert experience. Bryan Adams was the headliner. And let me just say, I was looking so forward to Steve Miller's performance. I was a fan, as you know, music from the 1970s, which is when The Joker and all of that was out. And obviously some staying power for Mr. Miller and his band. But anyway, disappointed to say at least this was the early 90s. And it just wasn't the Steve Miller I expected. But hey, love that one from 82, Abracadabra, to start our show today. And the minute we start our show every day, as you know, our phone line's open to you because this is a conversation and it's always better when it's two ways. You can listen to everything. You will sit there and listen to every word I have to say, but you can also participate, and your participation is encouraged. So we'll go right to the phones. Doug, an early bird today. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Michael.
How are you, Douglas?
Oh, just wonderful. This wonderful morning. you know, and you and I both talk a lot about jackwagons on the road. I cannot believe in several places this morning, I'm on the 401 heading to Toronto, and I see idiots with no lights on and changing lanes with no signal lights in the middle of all that lovely mist and water that's being thrown out. Lucky I wasn't close enough to hit them, but I saw it. And I can't believe they do it. It's crazy.
You know, Doug, I hear you. And you know why you weren't close enough to get in trouble from those people doing dumb things is because you are a smart driver. You're aware. I know you're on the road a lot, and you are leaving plenty of space around yourself to stay as safe as possible out there. Exactly. Because you know what's what, don't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Attaboy, Doug. Attaboy. And thanks for sharing that. And for those of you driving without your headlights on or failing to signal, I mean, it's the easiest thing to do and something we do so rarely, right? So you are going directly to jackwagon jail today. Do not pass go. Do not collect 200. Go to jackwagon jail. Joe is with us early this morning, too. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Mike. Mike, we got a big problem, man.
All right, let me hear it.
If we're going to give up an average of 5 to 6 runs a game front in the bullpen, our playoff does not look good.
Joe,
our playoff picture does not look good, Mike.
Joe,
it's scary.
Listen, I love you like a brother because I want to talk more about what Doug was talking about. I'll just say, I know you're concerned about the Blue Jays and 5 or 6 runs given up by the bullpen. It's okay. We're scoring 12 and 13 runs a game. Don't worry about it. 5 home runs last night. As many home runs hit as runs given up by the bullpen. Joe, don't worry. Pump your brakes, just not too hard. I don't want you to hydroplane in this weather. I did want to talk a little more, though, about what Doug was saying. It's almost as though he read my mind, was on the same page, because Doug saw some behavior from some other folks on the road that is dangerous, that deserves their sentence to jackwagon jail. But Doug also is aware enough on the road to know, hey, if I'm out here, right, I'm going to leave plenty of space like we were taught in driving school, right? I'm going to steer clear, keep myself in as protected a place as possible on the road so I'm not going to be impacted by those other jackwagons. I want to share another story. These have been coming up regularly, of a walk with Rosie the pandemic pup. And I've been kind of waffling about this. Do I or not? Do I not? But I'm going to share it. And then I promise I'm going to let it go for a little while. But this has really been, it's been frustrating me for quite some time. We've talked about it already on the show this week a lot. And this is how we all interact with one another on our roads. And by that, I mean sidewalks, bike lanes, streets, whatever. And I've said before, we're all just people trying to get around. And we choose or use different ways of doing that, right? So here's what happened last night. Rosie and I went for our walk late. I was busy, so we didn't get out until like 9:20, 9:30 last night. And to top it all off, I was wearing black. And you know, we talk about this all the time for more vulnerable road users, right? Let's wear bright colors, reflective this, reflective that. I was doing none of those things, but we were just out for a walk. It's a quiet neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. So I'm walking along the sidewalk, and there's a vehicle on the street that was going slowly past and stopped, and I could tell they wanted to back into a driveway, which we were very close to, Rosie and I. And of course, Rosie being Rosie, she found something to stop and smell. So we stopped about, 10 or 15 feet from the driveway. And this vehicle was waiting to come into the driveway. So Rosie's doing her little sniffari out there. It's her walk, not mine. She found something to smell. She smells. I wave my hand so that the person in the vehicle can back into the driveway. I wasn't sure they'd even see me in the dark. But then I heard this voice, because I guess her window was down. And she says, "Thank you." I'm like, "Hey, don't worry. I'm just going to stand here, wait for the dog to finish smelling your grass. You go right on into the driveway." And we had this little conversation, this woman and I. I never saw her face, but we just had this little chat. And she's like, "I really appreciate that. I knew you were there. I saw you." I'm like, "Hey, it's all good. Like, I'm not bothered at all. I'm waiting for the dog to finish smelling. You go into the driveway, and this is great." And so it occurred to me that this is the way most, without question, this is the way most interactions on our roads go. When I left work, like, this is not anecdotal. This is not a one-off. This is what happens. And trust me, I'm on the roads with you every day. And we can certainly get annoyed by the jackwagons, like Doug pointed out, but those are the jackwagons because they stand out. Most of us are leaving plenty of space when we're in a vehicle, using our turn signal, being courteous to pedestrians and people on bicycles. This is how it usually works. These are what the interactions are almost always like. When I was leaving work yesterday, another example, I'm walking through a parking lot near an area where cars are moving in and out of the parking lot here at the boardwalk. And there was one vehicle going out and one vehicle coming in. And so as I'm crossing, I see that a vehicle's making a turn into the parking area, and there's a vehicle leaving the parking area. And I think, I don't know, this vehicle, if it's turning, is going to see me past this other vehicle. So I stood on the sidewalk and I waited. And you know what? The driver did see me and he stopped. And I'm like, dude, I waved him through. I'm like, you go ahead. I'm waiting here anyway. These are the kinds of stories that people will sometimes share, and the driver thinks they got the right of way. I had to wait on the sidewalk. We pay attention. And our interactions, we're always, most of us, looking out for each other, right? These roads are not as dangerous as some people want you to believe they are. And then I get so frustrated with all of this effort and all of this energy that gets invested in this, that, and the other thing, because heaven forbid we be required to pay attention while we're out in a community of 700,000 people. Right? There are 699,999 other people trying to get around this ding-dang community same time as you. Why wouldn't you pay attention and try to not only keep yourself safe, but make their life easier? Make moves that, and most of us do that. And so I'm really tired of this idea that we need our municipal governments to step in and fix what's not broken. Like, we'll put in all this money and all this investment. We'll take all this energy and we'll talk about how dangerous it's. You take your life into your hands when you go out. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just, what we're asked of each other, we live in a community. We don't live by ourselves. So we'll just be responsible for our movements. And you know what? Everything is going to work out just fine. I don't need my government to be my parent. I really don't. How about just a reminder? How about an education campaign to remind people to stop, look, and listen before they cross the street? They use their eyes, they use their ears, and then they use their feet. I learned that in elementary school.
It's the final countdown.
All right, so I promise I'm just going to let it go now for a while, but super duper frustrating. And on that note, by the way, because we've been talking about our roads so much, your Friday all request theme is a mode of transportation. Is it a car? A fast one? Is it a jet airliner? Are you leaving on a jet plane? Is it a bicycle, Queen? Whatever. Modes of transportation is your theme for All Request Friday this week. But you just heard the final countdown, which means we count up our Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. Number 1, a national poll from Liaison Strategies shows strong support for Ontario's cell phone ban in schools. The result shows 81% of respondents support the cell phone ban in schools, a number Liaison Strategies says is rarely so high. Number 2, an arbitrator has awarded Ontario's hospital nurses pay increases of 5.25% over 2 years. A new contract their union calls disappointing because it doesn't include minimum staffing levels. Ontario Nurses Association provincial president Aaron Eris, who's from Kitchener, says the arbitrator's failure to include staffing ratios sends a message to nurses that they don't deserve the same safety in numbers as other frontline workers in dangerous professions. Quick aside, I was at Wren at Queens Boulevard yesterday, a.k.a. St. Mary's Hospital. Just had to get some testing done. Fantastic. Like, the care and attention and kindness I got from those nurses. Come on with your coming on. Beautiful people doing beautiful work. Love you. Every one of you. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. Prime Minister Mark Carney and his cabinet will meet behind closed doors for a second day in a row today. Ministers are talking about refocusing Ottawa's spending priorities for the fall budget next month and countering U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. Carney revealed yesterday that he and Trump had a lengthy conversation on a wide range of issues at the start of this week. The Prime Minister warned there's no guarantee Ottawa will secure any of the deals under discussion as the Trump administration works to squeeze the Canadian economy. Number 4, Canada's Felix Auger-Aliassime continues to make noise at the U.S. Open tennis tournament.
Back in a semifinal here at the U.S. Open for the first time since 2021. And while the road's not over, what are the emotions right now?
No, it feels amazing. 4 years ago, it feels like more. Honestly, it was a tough couple of years, but it feels even better now to be back in the semifinals. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing tournament so far. Like you said, it's not over. There's still, some tennis to play, and the biggest challenges, are yet to come. So, but that's what I live for. That's what I train for. So I'm going to show up and be ready for my match on Friday.
Well, congratulations. You gave us 4+ hours of entertainment.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
ladies and
Thank
gentlemen.
you. See you Friday. Thank you.
Aliassime, everybody.
Yeah, the road is not over. Aliassime faces top-seeded Yannick Sinner in the men's semifinals tomorrow. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. You know that Kitchener has entered a bid, right, to host the Memorial Cup next year? Well, today, you're going to find out if we've made the short list of potential hosts. Niagara, Kingston, and Guelph also expressed an interest in hosting the tournament. 2 of those teams will be on the final short list of potential hosts, and that's expected to be announced today. We are keeping our ears on it here at 570 News Radio, and we will let you know as soon as we find out. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. I wanted to talk a little bit about violence and our responses to it in our community, but I think Doug struck a chord earlier about the behavior he has seen on the roads today, and it is an ongoing topic. I've got Mary on the line, and Kathy was there. Kathy, if you want to call back, we'll take a quick break, and I'll get right to your calls about road safety, community safety. You take your pick. It's a conversation on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are all just people trying to get around, and we use different ways to do that. Some of us walk, some of us ride bicycles, some take transit, others drive cars. And almost every time, most of our interactions with one another, whether we're both driving vehicles, we're both riding bicycles, we're both walking, you take your pick. Most of those interactions are lovely. Lovely. Unfortunately, as is going to happen in a community of 700,000 people, some of those interactions are less than lovely. And when they are less than lovely, and maybe I should accept some responsibility for this because, you know, I'm in the media and we report on things, but there seems to be so much oxygen and energy being given to those less than lovely interactions. What if we flipped the script? Let's talk about the good ones instead. You'll find out we're getting along out there. We don't need all this interference in our lives. Mary is on the phone with us. Love a good conversation with Mary. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I've been meaning to call in about this subject, but now it's opened up this morning about, I was going to ask, are they making cars without signals in them anymore? Is that the problem?
That was the old joke, Mary, that the BMW is such an expensive vehicle, but they don't put turn signals in it. I get it.
And also, do they not put brakes in these cars? Because nobody stops at a stop sign.
You know,
do you think that's true?
One of the other things I saw, and it couldn't have been on my walk because it was daytime. But anyway, I saw a car go right through a four-way stop by my house. Just went right on through. Didn't even slow down.
I see them all the time because I'm up on my bike and I see it. But
you watch them.
You know what, Mike? I think you need to build a bigger jackwagon jail.
Oh, well, this is the best part, Mary. Jackwagon jail is a super jail. We have so much room in there, and we never let people out. Well, maybe we'll let them out, but
keep them
eventually. Keep them in there. Okay.
But listen, I've got a real good idea for the region.
Okay.
Let us put cameras at all stop signs.
No, Mary,
wouldn't we make a pile of money?
Maybe
Thanks,
we would.
Mike.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate that. You know, Mary makes me think back to the conversation we had earlier this week about right turns on red lights, and I got an email from Paul, and he said, what if we just created a rule that said you have to stop, come to a complete stop at the red light, check to make sure the way is clear before proceeding with your right-hand turn? In other words, why not follow the existing rules as the Highway Traffic Act lays them out? This is the problem. And again, 20%, probably less, 15% of people are doing it incorrectly. 80 to 85% of us are doing it the right way, the responsible way, but it's the 15 to 20%, the jackwagons, that are causing all of the trouble. And really, if we're all just paying attention out there, things will be fine. It'll be just fine. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I am doing okay. You know, you should pick up a part-time job doing driving transit. I'm telling you, the 18 years that I've been driving for transit, the things that I see on a daily basis, it would just it would just blow your mind. It's insane.
So what, like people not signaling, cutting people, like what are you seeing that's blowing your mind? People jaywalking?
Oh, yeah, everything. Like, you know, and it's like, how can you not see a big 40-foot bus coming down the street or anything? But, you know, it's, people not signaling, the rolling stops, like the light's green and you want to make the right, and, you know, your bicycles coming down the side and people not, letting the bike go through and, braking at the last minute. There's no signals and braking at the last minute. That's a classic.
Oh, yeah. I know. I've been behind those people, Gary.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, no one wants to get behind a bus, and you can always tell when you look in your mirror because, we're always stopping to pick people up or drop people off.
Sure.
But the amount of people that will just race around us and, you're coming up to a set of lights, but they're in a hurry to get to that red light or in a hurry to make that turn on at the intersection, but there's already 2 or 3 cars there. So I end up coming up like right behind them. It's like, well, that got you far, because you just raced around my bus and slammed on the brakes. It is pretty bad. I think people are just, I don't know, they're in a rush all the time or not focused or inexperienced drivers or so many drivers that I don't think they just don't care.
Yeah, Gary, I hear where you're coming from. Appreciate the work you do, driving transit and getting folks around the city of Guelph like you do. And there is a lot of that. We're all in such a ding-dang hurry these days, and it's a real challenge. But I'm here to tell you that all the bike lanes in the world aren't going to fix that. All the bans on right-hand turns is not going to fix that. It's just not. And I don't know why we invest so much energy in this. And I think Clinton gets to it in his email to Mike at 570news.com. Dangerous roads or dangerous drivers? Sure, maybe the roads aren't quite as dangerous as we're often led to believe, but the real threat comes from reckless drivers fueled by entitlement and inexperience. Yes, this is the thing. And so I don't know, like if somebody is reckless and they're not following the existing rules of the road, what makes you think they're magically going to start following the new rules that you create, right? Sadly, there's always going to be a percentage of people who are inclined to be jackwagons. But I promise you, there are not as many as you sometimes think. I promise you, the best interactions yesterday. The vehicle that stopped for me when I was going to stop for the vehicle I was walking, and then the lady trying to back into her driveway last night while Rosie the pandemic pup and I were out for a late night walk, and I was dressed all in black. Like, everything was fine. Everything's fine. I want to emphasize those stories, and that's what we started doing so far today. I did intend at the beginning of the show, so put a little pin in this, and if you want to come back during our Talkback Hour to discuss it further, because some really interesting comments yesterday, I thought, from the mayor of Vaughan, Stephen Del Duca, who you'll remember is a former leader of the Ontario Liberal Party, and what that Liberal, if you will, in quotes, said echoes what Conservative Premier Doug Ford has been saying about our court system and the need for bail reform. But Mayor Del Duca was pretty upset, and I think it gives us something to consider even in our own community. So we'll get into that during Talkback today. But right now I've got to get you to the news center for an update, and then let's talk rapid transit to Cambridge. Do you want buses or trains? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Phase 2 of light rail transit, or will it be rail transit? That's up for discussion. Public engagement, as you know, is underway. Perhaps you've already participated in it. A report will come to Regional Council in November with recommendations on how to move forward with getting rapid transit into Cambridge. We know that we have Ion Light Rail going from Conestoga Mall in Waterloo to Fairview Mall in Kitchener. Now the idea is to get that system from Fairview Mall in Kitchener down into South Cambridge at the Ainslie Street Terminal. How best to do that? We are led to believe, and I think it makes sense, that rail brings the greatest economic return / benefit because of all of the development that will happen along the rail line. Just look at what's happened through Kitchener and Waterloo since tracks were laid down. But rapid buses are being talked about more and more. There's some flexibility embedded in that. And when you look at the cost, you might be getting more bang for your buck, so to speak, with buses, because the cost of light rail to get into Cambridge and finish the system is more than $4 billion. Corey Kimpson is the Ward 3 councillor in the city of Cambridge, and she joins us for a conversation. And Corey, I know that you are an advocate for light rail into Cambridge. You want to see a system into Cambridge that is similar to the system currently running in Waterloo and Kitchener. Why is it that rail is the important technology to you?
So if we look at the importance of light rail into Cambridge and look at the planning and sort of the longer term planning, and that's something that we're working on now with the Preston Secondary Plan. Research is showing that the light rail provides more of a permanent infrastructure and it's for longer term planning as opposed to the bus rapid transit, which doesn't give you sort of that stability. And when we're looking at my ward in particular, Ward 3, we have a major transit station area. And it's important to note that that has been put in place by the higher level government. So the region has determined the parameters of where the major transit station area is. And that talks about the area around the transit stations. And that's where they are promoting intensified and denser development. So that's already in place. We're being told that this particular area is going to have dense development and also doesn't require the parking minimums. So we're already expected to improve these larger scale, more dense developments with less parking in these areas. And I look at the light rail as an opportunity to efficiently move people. I don't believe that the, quote, rapid buses are going to do the same job.
Is that major transit area you're talking about the King and Eagle area? Is that where we'd expect to see this development?
Well, that's part of it. And it's the MTSA in the Preston area is the King and Eagle area, but then it also comes a fair distance along King Street in Preston as well. So it's not just sort of that T intersection that we hear so much about, but it's moving along. And then you have adjacent to a major transit station area, you have what's considered a regeneration area. And again, that's where we're seeing more of this development.
Certainly, we have seen that business case play out. The proof is in the pudding, if you will, based on what we've seen through Kitchener and Waterloo along the Central Transit Corridor. But of course, something that always gets people concerned or asking questions, I guess, Corey, is the price tag. And even with the recent estimate, which is a little bit lower than previous estimates we had been working on, the region is talking about $4.3 billion. Does that number give you pause at all?
Absolutely. It does sort of two ways. First, the longer we wait, the more it will cost. And that is the first concern. We already took, and when I say we, it's the collective we, the government at the time that made the decision to do the LRT in phases made the decision to do the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and then Cambridge would be the phase 2. Well, look what has happened. It obviously costs more. We have some fragmentation as far as our transit goes, and Cambridge hasn't reaped the development the same way. There is federal money, there is provincial money available. They are currently, the upper level governments are funding these rapid transit projects. It's happening in other communities. The money is going to go somewhere, so why shouldn't it go to us? Waterloo Region is a fast-growing community. There's no reason why Waterloo Region would not be recognized as one of the recipients for this type of funding.
What does your role as a councillor in our quote-unquote lower-tier municipality look like here, Corey? Because obviously this is a regional project. So what do you do as a councillor in Cambridge to sort of shepherd this project and your hopes for rail forward?
At the end of the day, as a lower tier municipal councillor in Cambridge, I do not have the ability to make the decision on whether or not regional council will decide to make the business case for light rail transit or the rapid bus transit. What I can do is advocate for what I believe is going to offer the best benefit to our community, what's going to offer that economic benefit, both from the stability as well as when we have the investment in the light rail spine, so to speak, we'll have the development charges to come in. But it goes beyond development charges. It goes beyond that investment in the property taxes to come, and that's going to benefit everyone in our community. So a big part of my role is the education piece of why this is positive for our community, why we as a community should be getting behind the light rail transit, and what the benefits are going to be for everyone. And that's my role, is to educate, to advocate, to communicate, and to do whatever I can to really push this forward.
I recognize this is hypothetical and playing a bit of the what-if game, but do you envision, or what would you see Cambridge looking like 20 or 30 years from now if trains don't come, if it is a rapid bus system, if LRT does not get extended? What does that look like for the city? What does that mean for Cambridge?
Well, Cambridge is unique because of our geography and our rivers. So unlike other communities, we only have certain ways in and certain ways out. And anyone that's been in Cambridge at specific times of the day knows that things don't move freely. We're having growth. We're having more people coming to our community. And if we don't have another way to move people, such as the light rail transit, there will be more cars and we will just have gridlock.
Corey, as always, I appreciate the time you make for us on the show. Thanks very much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Mike. Have a wonderful day.
Corey Kimpson, Ward 3 councillor in Cambridge, joining us to talk about her desire to see rail, a streetcar about which there is desire. I'm working too hard on that one, but Corey Kimpson, Ward 3 councillor in Cambridge, would like to see her city get rail as we are in earnest discussion around phase 2 of rapid transit. What about you? Like, I think about some of the visionary transportation infrastructure projects that have shaped this community, not the least of which would be the expressway. Where would we be without the expressway? And what I find incredibly ironic about our current light rail system is it's really a throwback, right? We used to have rail connecting this community. Streetcars were everywhere. We unearthed some old tracks, putting in the new tracks, and so on and so forth. And Cambridge, my goodness gracious, you could take a train, an electric train from Galt before Cambridge was amalgamated, from Galt all the way to Port Dover back in the day. It amazes me how far removed we are from our rail past. So when we look at rapid transit today, and the fact that there is rail from Waterloo in the north to Kitchener so far as the south terminus, it would be exceedingly odd, would it not, to have the rail end there and serve Cambridge with just rapid buses? But then there's the price tag, $4.3 billion. That's a whole heck of a lot of money. But to me, you got to finish this with rail. Cambridge absolutely deserves it. And the cost, we're just going to have to figure out. Remembering, I always want to remind you this. We talk about upper levels of government helping to fund phase 2 of light rail, and I get that. But it doesn't matter which government's funding it. The money is still yours. It's your tax money that funds these projects. It's just getting distributed further, right, to all Ontario taxpayers and all Canadian taxpayers. So thanks to them, we can have a $4.3 billion phase 2 of light rail transit. I think we should have rail, but what do you want to see? Do you want to see trains or buses to complete the system into Cambridge? Let me know on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
There is federal money, there is provincial money available. Projects, it's happening in other communities. The money is going to go somewhere, so why shouldn't it go to us? Waterloo Region is a fast-growing community. There's no reason why Waterloo Region would not be recognized as one of the recipients for this type of funding.
Corey Kimpson is the Ward 3 councillor in Cambridge, obviously believes that this project, phase 2 of our rapid transit system, would be a project that attracts the attention of upper levels of government to get that much needed funding. Because one thing I think we will all agree on is, as expensive as that price tag is, $4.3 billion, ain't no way, no how we are funding that all on the backs of property taxpayers in this region. It's just not feasible for a project of that magnitude. And it begs the question, do you want buses or trains to finish this system into Cambridge? I think it would be not only a bit of a slight to the city of Cambridge, but it would just be weird to have trains through kind of half the community and rapid buses the rest of the way. And really, just even think of Hespeler Road in and of itself and all of the development potential on Hespeler Road. I've heard some wild numbers, like into the many billions of dollars of economic return if rail is running down Hespeler Road, which it would if we do rail for phase 2 of this system. Remember, the tracks are permanent, the stops are permanent. Buses, while flexible, that flexibility doesn't necessarily make for great development around those stations or those stops, because the stops can be moved. And then what? Anyway, I think you should go rail, but I understand the trepidation around the cost. What do you want when it comes to rapid transit to Cambridge? You want buses? You want trains? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Bob, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm just wondering if anybody thought, could they not start the rail, have Cambridge have their own rail system, and then work out have the rapid buses from Kitchener to there and have their rail system set up?
You know what, Bob? It's an interesting question, and I don't know what that's going to look like in the final business case, but I think I want to say it was Councillor Pam Wolf. It might have been Mayor Liggett. I think it was. Anyway, that was brought up as a possibility, because the most expensive part of rail for phase 2 is getting into the Preston area. So if you did buses to there and then had trains from, say, King and Eagle down to the Ainsley Street Terminal, kind of a hybrid system, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's a quicker start, get it going anyways or something. I don't know. That's just my idea.
No, you know what, Bob? Appreciate that call. It is an excellent idea. And I'm trying to remember. I think we shaved about $2 billion, maybe more, off the cost, because again, you think about it'll essentially be an elevated train, right? Going over or down Chance Hell, however it's going to. I'm no engineer, you know that, but that will be, getting over the waters and the lands and Chance Hell itself to get the trains into Cambridge from Fairview Mall. That first stretch is the most expensive part. And so we could slice the cost virtually in half and just have the rail on the ground in Cambridge. Does that effectively complete the system? Maybe. And I don't know if that's an option on the table right now. Lloyd, good morning.
Yes, sir. Everybody seems to assume that Cambridge is going to keep on growing. I'm kind of worried about the Toyota plant. Toyota produces about 70% of the cars in the United States market. They're currently losing millions of dollars. They're trying to be good neighbors and putting up a brave face, but they can't continue doing this. And if the jobs are reduced at Toyota or they close it down, that's going to be a big blow against the Cambridge community for jobs. And also, why not move people as cheaply as possible? The buses circumvent any road problems. They get you there faster, in my opinion. There's less road chaos.
Lloyd, appreciate that perspective as well. Road chaos. One of the things that I think in our heart of hearts we wished with Phase 1 of light rail through Kitchener and Waterloo is that it was not at grade, because how many times? It was just the other week, right? Another collision between a train and a vehicle. It's just putting them at grade makes for all sorts of interesting circumstances on our roads. And interesting point, too, about long term. I don't know that there is any threat imminently of Toyota leaving Cambridge. It is a main employer and a terrific neighbor, as Lloyd points out. But it's a justifiable concern in light of our current relationship with the United States. Growth, though, and that's where the upper levels of government would be inclined to fund the system, right? Because we have long been designated as a place to grow in Ontario. And if we have systems like this that can move people better and more effectively, we have room for more, and we become that growing community that remains the economic force that it is today. George, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. As you know, I live in Cambridge.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and I'm already paying taxes I can't afford. I just wonder how much more are they going to bump up our property taxes to make this affordable, and I'm certainly against the bridge across. I'd like to see if they do build it, just a straight line up Hespeler Road, and that would be it to make it more affordable.
George, appreciate that call as well. And I hear you on taxes, right? We're getting into, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it's essentially budget season now, right? These deliberations are beginning at municipal councils and regionally. They're talking about working towards a target of a 5% increase. Well, that's all well and good. But do you remember the 9.5% and 10% increases the previous couple of years? People are feeling it. They're feeling it in their pocketbooks. There's no two ways about it. And I think, unfortunately for your preferred route idea, George, that the route has already been established, and it will include that sort of flyover, the train flyover, Chance Hell into the Preston part of Cambridge. Interesting times when it comes to finishing that system and what it ultimately looks like. You know what else is interesting? I'm so interested in this because we know that we are in a housing crisis. We need to build more homes. We need to build them more quickly. And I thought that our municipality was behind until just the other day. The province awarded money to both Kitchener and Waterloo because they're above their established targets. So how did they get there? Beating, not just meeting, but beating the targets. And how might the province be looking at changing the way it gives money to municipalities for housing? We talk about that next on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We learned this week that our cities, Kitchener and Waterloo, were on the receiving end of some provincial funding through the Building Faster Fund because we are doing just that. We are exceeding the housing targets set out for us in order to create the necessary space for the people living in our region. So Waterloo gets about $6.4 million, Kitchener about $10.3 million. Good news all around to be ahead of those targets. And the provincial government is also hinting at some changes to come with the Building Faster Fund. Waterloo Mayor Dorothy McCabe joins us to talk more about it. Mayor McCabe, good morning.
Mr. Farwell, good morning.
Let's start, first of all, if we can, with that $6.4 million that you received for exceeding those housing targets. That's got to feel pretty good. Is that a feather in the cap for council and planning staff?
I guess it's a few feathers in the cap. But yeah, it's we're really pleased. It's, it takes a lot of work and a lot of negotiation with our, local development community. Our staff work really hard on this stuff to build the community, the future-ready city that people have told us they want. And certainly council, continues to ask good questions and engage with residents so they're aware of what's coming. But no, we're really happy with the $6.4 million. We were 30% over the target. So, good news all around on that front.
Absolutely, it is 30% over the target. It really is impressive. One thing, though, and I hope you can help me understand this better, because I'm old enough to remember a time when we counted housing starts as foundations poured. And I know provincially the NDP has been critical of the way this provincial government is counting housing starts, if you will, dorm rooms or long-term care, retirement home rooms, etc. So how did we get to this number? Is it a different way that the province is counting what a house is, so to speak?
Well, that's probably a better question for someone from the province to answer. But I can say from our perspective in Waterloo, because we, right now are welcoming about 50,000+ new people, new residents who are students to our community, that we think student housing is important, as well as housing for, families or, younger professionals, et cetera, right? Like people who are coming to Waterloo, regardless of the purpose, they're coming here to work, learn, live, play. They need a place to sleep. So in my mind, students need a safe, secure place to live. And so I see no reason why the 500 new student housing units that the University of Waterloo is building shouldn't count towards this, because it does take some pressure off of our rental housing stock, the pressure that we know we've seen in the last few years.
The fund, Mayor McCabe, through which you were recently awarded this $6.4 million for exceeding those housing targets, the province is hinting at some revisions to the Building Faster Fund. Mm-hmm. What might those revisions look like?
Well, again, we'll have to wait and see, but I was pleased to have the opportunity on Tuesday to talk both with Premier Ford as well as Minister Flack, to, who is, I think, really in good faith looking for some solutions and some changes to that. One of the things that I shared with both of them was that, because there's some potential, speculation about them using permits as a measurement for municipalities. And what I shared with both the Premier and Minister Flack, who's Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, is that currently right now today in Waterloo, we have 4,300 housing units that are fully approved, fully permitted, but are still not getting built. And so that, again, I question, that I don't see that is a measurement that makes sense for us. It's the market conditions that are holding back getting shovels in the ground. We understand that. So again, our message to the province is, hold us to account as municipalities and councils for things that we can control. And in this case, as I said, we already have 4,300 fully approved and fully permitted. That's 3 years worth of growth that we have, that if the market conditions improved, could be built. So one of the things that's one of the things I shared with them. They're talking to other people across the province, but I don't know. I was if one of the things I suggested to the minister was was, there's different low interest or no interest repayable loans that they offer to other people in other businesses in other sectors of our society, like to help them, expand, et cetera. Like, I'm like, is that an option in this case? Like, if the provinces, got in to help some of them finance to start building some of these condos and other family homes. Like, I don't know if the numbers could work on that, but I'm just saying they need a way to address the real challenge, which is the labor market conditions.
I've heard arguments in the past that sunset clauses may be useful in a situation like this, whereby if you do not start building within 18 months, just throwing out an arbitrary number, but then that land goes back into the market and somebody that's ready to build would be able to get that construction started. Is that a tool that you could use?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they put in some legislation last year, the use it or lose it clause. So that's something that it's approximately 3 years worth of a timeline there. So that's something that, certainly we could look at. I mean, again, HST, removing that is something that I know from the development community that they are advocating for. So I don't know if that's one of the solutions. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm happy to see the minister talking to municipalities, talking to the development representatives from the development community, but particularly talking to municipalities to say, like, what would help in this situation. We have to come up with a solution, and I think. We'll continue through the role that I have on the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's board and on the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus. Like, we're continuing to have these discussions with them. But yeah, it's one of these just complex challenges that we're facing in today's economic environment.
Are there any levers that a municipality can pull to improve these market conditions, development charges, anything like that?
Well, I think one of the main things that the city, our city has done to try to do what we can to address this housing challenge is what we did with 2025 University Avenue East. And that's where we took the money from the federal government that received, not all of it, but a large chunk of it through the Housing Accelerator Fund. And we are working with Build Now and Habitat for Humanity, and you were there, Mike, at the announcement. Like, that is, I see, the biggest role that we as a city are playing to build and to work with, Phil Mills at Habitat for Humanity and some of our community partners to build the deeply affordable, and then that market housing that people really need. So that is our big way that we're stepping in, because and we're moving ahead with that, right? Like, site planning is going on right now. A lot of the technical work that's involved with developing a site of this size is happening right now. The timelines for getting a permit pulled for the first building is in 2025. So I was talking to Mr. Mills just yesterday, and as far as we know, we're all on track. He assured me we're on track with the goals that we need to hit. But specifically, so that's really where we are doing something really big to try and move to try and address some of the challenges in the housing market. On DCs particularly, again, what I said to the Premier and Minister Flack was, the narrative about using Vaughan as an example and saying, Vaughan cut their development charges in half does not fit the reality on the ground in Waterloo and Waterloo region. Our development charges are already, Vaughan's were about $120,000. They cut those in half. Waterloo's were around $23,000, so we're already still half of that, or more than half of that. So, that's not the panacea. Like, we're not the problem on that perspective. And quite frankly, municipalities need development charges or need some type of funding to build the infrastructure that is connected to the homes.
Has the province given any indication, Mayor McCabe, as to when or if these revisions to the Building Faster Fund will happen?
No, there's no specific timeline, but my understanding is it's going to be in the next. I mean, I'm hoping by the end of 2025, but if not, then it may be in the budget 2026 budget process.
It's certainly the issue in our community these days, and really appreciate the explanation and perspective you can give us on it. Thank you very much for making time.
Anytime, Mike. Anytime.
You enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Waterloo Mayor Dorothy McCabe. Really, if we didn't understand the situation on the ground before, I think we do now. And I got to say, I kind of feel like the province is right in this when it says a permit is not a house. And you hear that from Mayor McCabe. I mean, right? More than 4,000 of these ready-to-go housing units approved. Like, the only thing missing is the shovel in the ground and the building starting to go up. And what holds that back? Market conditions, as we know, right? Lots of places, until they're 80% sold, won't even have shovels in the ground. So I'm wondering what you might think a tool is or a way is for us to get what is already approved built. And I know many of you are in our trades. You might be working in construction yourself and can bring me a perspective that I don't have, because I sit here and talk about these things, but I'm not out there, especially on lousy days like today, doing the work. Are we short of labor? Are we waiting until the optimum conditions so that we can maximize profits with what we're building? Maybe it's a combination of both of those things. But if we've got all of these housing units approved by our municipalities, why aren't we getting shovels in the ground? How can we accelerate? And as the province's legislation says, or its fund says, build faster. How do we do that? You give me your ideas. Would love to hear them on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Businesses in other sectors of our society, like to help them band, et cetera. Like, I'm like, is that an option in this case? Like, if the provinces got in to help some of them finance to start building some of these condos and other family homes. Like, I'm just saying they need a way to address the real challenge, which is the labor market conditions.
And those labor market conditions can be just that on the labor side, right? We don't have enough people doing the work of building the homes, building the condominium towers. Maybe it's also connected to the market conditions generally, the cost of borrowing, the cost of building. And you know that the people doing the building expect a return on their investment, on their labor. They want to and deserve to profit. How big that profit is, now we get into all kinds of interesting conversations, right? Can't you take less because we need the housing, et cetera, et cetera? But is it the developer's job to fix the housing crisis in and of themselves, or are governments going to play a role here? And you know, when I heard Mayor McCabe, and you got a sense of it just there in that clip, talking about what the province might be able to do, and maybe even the feds, right? The HST piece was already one of them. But we subsidize all manner of private enterprise, right? We talk about it all the time, and we want corporate welfare, so to speak, to end. But if we're doing it in some areas, would this not be an area for corporate welfare, so to speak? Are there subsidies that we could create, make available in order to get this housing built, because it is so important to our communities? How do we go about getting the housing built faster? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Paul, good morning.
Good morning. Very simple solution.
Okay.
Hey, are you ready for this?
I love simple, so yes, I am. I'll be able to understand this.
You drop all the building standards and funnel all profits back to the Liberal Party, and then you can get whatever you want.
Is that how we're going to do this?
Isn't it accurate?
Well,
you got to kick back to the Liberal Party in order to get something built.
I'm trying to have a serious conversation this morning.
And I am serious. It's a Liberal Party that has been jamming things up.
Really? Because there's a conservative.
Well,
there's been a conservative government for 8 years in Ontario, Paul.
Well, at the Ontario level, yeah, but federally, it's been the Liberals that have been blocking all projects over the last 10 years, plain and simple.
You're telling me that the federal Liberal government is blocking a condominium in Waterloo. You want us to believe that? You don't actually believe that.
If there's no money in it for them,
Paul, come on.
Because they're going to come up with all these different. We have to have an approval from this group. We have to have an approval from this group.
Paul,
we have to have.
There's a Ministry of Housing provincially, not federally. Stop it.
You don't think the feds control it in the end?
No, I don't actually. Anyway.
Oh, they do.
Okay.
So you need to take those rose-colored glasses off, Mike.
Okay, Paul. Okay. I'm disappointed because I know Paul has a history of work in the trades, and I thought he might have some insight that I would not otherwise have had myself. And look, I get it. Paul is who he is, and I understand his frustrations with Liberal governments, but that is not the roadblock here as far as I can tell. One of the things that I have heard, and I'm sure you have too, when it comes to this problem that we're trying to solve, the lack of housing, how we get more of it built more quickly, and this would pertain directly to the federal government, is should the federal government get back in the business of housing, social housing in particular, which it was in the business of until in and around the mid-1990s. Now, maybe that's where Paul's cockamamie theory comes into play. It might. If there's not enough profit in it for Liberal insiders, then it wouldn't happen. But I'm not going down that path here. I don't think that's the case at all. But there are certainly levers to pull federally and provincially to help us get things built on the ground. One of the things that I've actually been anxiously waiting for and was quite excited about, because this was a proposal, I think, made by, certainly endorsed by Mike Moffat, the economist who's been really one of the foremost voices on the housing crisis in this country. And it was the idea of this catalog of wartime-like homes, the same way we built 70, 80 years ago post-war. Let's do that sort of thing again, offer this catalog of options to potential homeowners, and then build them quickly, because you get this many options in the catalog, you get them assembled, you get them on site, and you're building communities in an awful hurry. I was quite interested in that proposal. I know that if he didn't make it, I think he did though, but he certainly endorsed it, did Mike Moffat. It was talked about after some federal government cabinet retreat, and I'm still waiting to see the catalog and what these houses look like and how we're going to get them built and what we're going to do and so on and so forth. I don't think still, quite frankly, the idea of a sunset clause is a terrible idea, whereby you have the land, you have the approval, we're just waiting for the market conditions to reach a point that you're comfortable with. Well, maybe somebody else is comfortable enough with those market conditions and they can get the building done, instead of just having that approval sit there and we wait and we wait and we wait when we need the housing as badly as we need the housing. I don't think that a sunset clause of some sort is the worst idea. And Mayor McCabe, with her thoughts on what the province might be able to do in terms of interest-free loans or some sort of subsidy, much like we see in other industries. Maybe that's an option as well. Bottom line is, Kitchener and Waterloo both benefited from the Building Faster Fund just this week, and the province is talking about, and we'll probably learn by the end of this year or by next year's budget at the latest, what the changes to the Building Faster Fund in the province, not the feds, in the province, looks like, by next spring at the latest when the budget comes out. This is the Mike Farwell Show. It's Thursday morning. Gary Chalk with Living Retired is coming up on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling.
Every Thursday morning at this time, we are hooked on that feeling of what it's like to live retired. It sounds like a whole heck of a lot of fun. Gary Chalk is the author of a humor column that is entitled Living Retired, and he joins us on the show every Thursday morning at this time to bring it to life. And, you know, we had such a hoot together last week, Gary and I did, that I got an email right afterwards from Jocelyn who said, where did you find this guy? Can you imagine what he's like at family get-togethers? I said, listen, Jocelyn, I can't tell you where I found this guy, but what I will tell you is that you can find him too, because Gary doesn't just talk to us on this show every week. He'll talk to your group, your company, your service club, whatever it is. You want a little bit of laughter, you want an engaging, humorous look at things, you contact Gary Chalk. And don't forget, you'll find him livingretired.press. That's where the column is online. You can reach Gary there, sign up for his weekly newsletter, and then you're on the circuit officially, Gary. Like, you're not just talking to our dozens and dozens of listeners here. You're going to talk to thousands and thousands of, people that are captivated by you and audiences around this community.
You have reached the voicemail of Gary Chalk. I am in the intensive care unit due to high blood pressure and extreme anxiety watching the Toronto Blue Jays. Please leave a message.
Gary, you're not the only one, my friend. They are making this so much more difficult than it needs to be, aren't they?
Oh, I tell you, there is so much stress watching those guys spit and scratch. I tell you, I don't know. We score a lot of runs, but we allow a lot of runs.
I'll tell you, that's what I get stressed watching them pitch, along with stretching, scratching, spitting, etc. Yes.
Hey, Mike, here's a question.
Yeah.
Is dirt fresh?
That's a very good question. I'm going to go with yes. It's fresh until you roll around in it.
Yeah, it could be right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wondered, fresh dirt, is it a marketing ploy to encourage homeowners to replenish the dirt in our yard? It all comes about, there's a company out not too far from where I live, and they have a big sign out front, and it currently says, soil and gravel, fresh stock arriving daily.
Fresh stock of soil and gravel.
Yeah, so it must be fresh.
Okay, now you've really got me thinking. Where did it come from? I need more details, Gary. Like, I want to know where it came from and how fresh it was.
Well, I guess I'm going to get the interns here at the Living Retired World headquarters onto that. But, I'm thinking maybe I did just fall off the turnip truck, and dirt and gravel now comes with a best before date.
Well, see, I think it was freshest when you took it out of the ground before relocating it to your neighbor's yard.
Yeah, but somehow, I don't know, I can't follow it. I was at a market garden right on Monday, Labor Day, and got fresh corn and a basket of fresh tomatoes to make a chili sauce. The young boy helping me, he said Monday, Labor Day, was his last day before going back to grade 12 to finish school. I said, what are you going to do? What do you plan on doing after high school? His answer blew me away. He said, hopefully go to military college and become a fighter pilot. And
wow.
I'm thinking, yeah. I thought when I finished high school, if you were to ask me what I wanted to do, best I would come up with is get a job.
Any job will do.
Yeah. Speaking of going back to school and, getting all those little brats, those kids out of the house, this is always a busy time in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. You've got Waterloo University, Laurier, Conestoga. That's a lot of people moving in, and moving takes a lot of planning. Students have to plan, where they're going to be living, plan where they're going to do their banking, plan to maybe get a new doctor, have a plan to where they're going to get their prescriptions filled at a pharmacy. And Mike, with all that planning pretty well complete now, the students can finally do what they wanted to do to go to the university in your area, is turn their attention to Ezra Avenue planning.
I was wondering when you were going to get there, because come on, in these here parts, Gary, there's only one important thing on the calendar.
Oh, dear. Speaking of planning, have you stopped to consider the amount of planning that goes into Looney Hot Dog Night at the Jays games?
I think there was very little planning, Gary. Somebody just said, you know what would be a great idea? Looney hot dogs. And all of a sudden, the idea was born.
Yeah, it could have been. But then, somebody up in the corner office had to start the planning process. I mean, they got over 40,000 people in the stadium for a game.
Yep.
Last week, they sold 96,633 hot dogs. 96,000 plus. Wieners had to be planned to brought in. 96,000 buns had to be brought in. 96,000 pieces of foil to wrap the hot dogs in. And at least 96,000 packets that don't open of mustard and 96,000 packets that don't open of relish.
You're right about those things. And my buddy went to one of these games one night and decided he wanted to eat a hot dog per inning. So, at least 9, unless the game goes to extras. He didn't need that many hot dogs, Gary.
Oh, I'll tell you, I just can't imagine my stomach or anybody's stomach after doing that. But, baseball, it's all about statistics in Major League Baseball. So I went and I looked at that game, the stats, that last one. I don't make this stuff up, Mike, right?
No, it comes straight from the hardworking research team, I know.
Okay, well, the game was really turned out to be something to bark about because it was Looney Hot Dog Night, and it was really International Dog Day. And you know who the starting pitcher for the Jays was on International Hot Dog Day?
I hope it was Chris Bassett.
It was.
All right, the hound that he is.
And it didn't matter who the visiting Minnesota Twins had on their mound because, well, they're having a bad season. Their pitching staff is in the doghouse. You sort of get that little segue
I got you.
You got there? So, at any one time, obviously, there's half the fans were in their seats watching, and the other half were at the concession stands buying hot dogs. And then in the 6th inning, there was a big announcement. The mega scoreboard out in the field, the size of Rhode Island, it flashed in the 6th inning. Hot dogs eaten, 85,386. Crowd went wild.
See, they do it just to encourage people.
Yeah, yes. The crowd stomping, going for more hot dogs. Bathroom attendants are grimacing, thinking, oh, no, this isn't going to be a long night for cleaning up. And then the 7th inning stretch came, and again, the fans stood up. They sang a rousing rendition of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. About half. The other half, they couldn't get their pant buckles done up. So they remained seated, and they sang, Take Me Out to the Bathroom. Oh, I'm telling you, Mike, and in the end, they lost the game. The fans didn't know because they were busy devouring these 96,633 hot dogs. And it's because of this, baseball stats, there are some more stats I discovered. Runs allowed. R.A. for Bassett, he allowed 5.2, I think it was. And runs allowed for the fans is ruined apparel, and that number's still being counted because every person with a fan sitting behind them squirted bright yellow mustard all down the back.
Okay. I'm glad that's what you were going with when it came to apparel ruined, yes.
Yep, that's right. And then there's also hits allowed, H.A. Bassett allowed 4 hits, and it's also known for the fans as heaving attempts by eating 96,000 of these hot dogs. So it comes around that I did some more math, 6 inches length for the average hot dog, and if you were to line them all up, you'd have a line of hot dogs stretching more than 9 miles. And that is the equivalent to the length of the lineup of men's going to the washroom after the game.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, and next week there's another Looney Hot Dog Night. I'm going to do the follow-up again, and I'm going to see if I can get these new stats and have them sponsored by Pepto-Bismol.
That makes so much sense. And you know what? We told my buddy that same thing about those 6-inch hot dogs. He ate 4.5 feet of hot dog that night. He had one per inning. Gary Chalk joins us every Thursday morning at this time with Living Retired. Be sure to check it out online, livingretired.press. Sign up for the weekly newsletter. Have it delivered directly to your inbox. I don't know how Gary's experience at Looney Night at Rogers Centre is going to work with his diet challenge weigh-in day, but we'll find out after this on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Thursday morning at this time, we're joined by humor columnist Gary Chalk. He writes the humor column Living Retired, which you can find online at livingretired.press. And if you'd like to have somebody like Gary, in fact, if you want Gary himself to bring his humorous perspective to your next event or service club meeting, Gary is more than happy to be booked as your speaker. Again, livingretired.press. You'll find all the information you need. Gary, I understand tomorrow's a pretty big day at Living Retired headquarters.
Oh, I tell you, if you were to be here, this would be the conversation you would hear between Jan and I when we wake up. I'll say, Jan, you go first. And she'll say, no, Gary, I went first last week. And I said, no, dear, I insist, women first. And Jan then finally says, okay, but you have to leave the room. What we're doing is getting ready to be weighed. And it happens every Friday morning for this diet challenge we're in. We've been in for a couple of years here now, and dieting might just it's like golf. You know, it's based on the honor system. However, unlike golfers, dieters, we don't drink afterwards. In fact, we don't drink at all. That's the problem with dieting.
It sounds like it to me. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So everybody starts the challenge by putting $20 in the pot, which I guess is a bad choice of words when you look at myself in the bathroom mirror. But nonetheless, at the end of the challenge, 3 people who have lost the most weight, they split the winnings. Then what do? They celebrate with chicken wings and beer and then enroll in the next challenge. It just keeps rolling over. And each of these challenges that we're in, they're 3 months long, and then everybody takes a few weeks off. That's when we eat. And my strategy, which seems to work well, is in those couple of weeks we're off before the next diet challenge, I bulk up. So I go out, I eat as much food as possible, things like beef jerky, you name it, anything that's excessively rich in fat, so that for the first week when I have to weigh in, my weight is so far up there that it makes it somewhat easy trying to start to lose your weight.
Sure, I like your strategy, Gary.
Yeah. So then what happens? We get on our diet. And the diet, not surprising, I guess, for anybody who's tried to diet. It's mostly, well, it's not mostly, it's all tomatoes, lettuce, peppers, celery, broccoli, cauliflower, and zucchini. Then we add in all the tasty foods that people want to eat when you're on a diet. Watercress, bok choy, kale, Swiss chard, bamboo shoots, collard greens, and chickpeas.
Gary, you're not making it sound very appetizing.
Well, it's what the plan is, and I've also then during the start of the next diet challenge, you have to cut back on the beer, which according to Jan, she had the nerve to say, because I've cut back on beer, she said, Gary, you're very irritable these days. You think?
You and I are cut from the same cloth, Mr. Chalk. We are.
I couldn't imagine she had the nerve to say that. And then what she followed that up with was saying, let's begin eating tofu. I said, that's it. I draw the line. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm not trying to starve to death.
If you thought I was irritable before...
Oh, my goodness. The other thing we do, and this is a little piece of advice I picked up. It seems to work. Professional diet people, nutritionists, I think they are, and they have an advanced degree in celery sticks. And what they suggest you do is use smaller dinner plates And then the plate, you don't tend to fill it up so much. Now, you do tend to have 4 or 5 platefuls of food, but nonetheless, you start with a smaller dinner plate. Now, we have a nice collection of smaller dinner plates because we're grandparents, and when our 2 granddaughters, Dahlia and Yasmina, were young, they'd come to our place. We had a set of 3 Bears plates that they would use. So we pull them out. Naturally, I'm Papa Bear, so I sit at the Papa Bear plate. Jan sits down at the Mama Bear plate, and right away Papa Bear looks at it because I'm irritable, because I'm dieting. So I'm not so sure that strategy is working. But for weeks now, my meals have mostly been, well, not mostly, totally, it's roughage. So I went to the dictionary. Roughage is indigestible food such as legumes, whole grains, and vegetables that promote the elimination of waste from your large intestine. So it's not the keto diet, it's the Beano diet, which really just knocks the wind out of you, sort of get my drift. So I've been dieting so long now, Mike, that for moral support, I talk with a friend of mine, lives in your area, Pat, and we get together, and he's on one of these other starvation diets where you sort of get rid of food for a day or something like that. Anyways, so we don't talk about the Blue Jays when we get together because we're dieting. Instead, we prefer to talk about chickpeas. 2 guys out having coffee, having chickpea discussions. There's not much you can say because really there's not much to chickpeas.
We have so much to look forward to, Gary.
Oh, I'm telling you, this is a reason not to retire because when you got time on your hands, your wife inevitably is going to pull out all the decorator pillows. They're going to put out all the fake candles and the decorator, hand cloths and potpourri and stuff. And eventually, after that's all done, they're going to say, well, let's go on a diet. So that'll bring you around to, if you do our diet challenge, Friday morning, the weekly weigh-in, and we stand at the bathroom scale. And I do have one thing that does work. This suggestion does work for all the other irritable men who are not drinking beer and eating chickpeas for when they get weighed in. What you do is before you step on the scale, obviously you take all your clothes off for starters. I know this is not a pretty picture, but you're doing everything you can to lose even that extra little ounce before you step on. So the final ounce that I try to get rid of before I step on the scale, I exhale, because that may just lower that number that comes up on the scale. You never know, Mike.
I like it, Gary. And just remember, tomorrow morning, okay, you go first.
I tell you, sometimes, all we watch on TV anymore is The Biggest Loser.
There you go.
Jan just looks at me and says, you're not losing weight, but you are the biggest loser. And the other fear I have, this has never happened, I must admit, but can you imagine if one of those times I get on the scale and I've lost more than Jan? Like, how do you say that?
You don't. You lie. That's when you lie. That's a good lie in a marriage right there, Gary.
You got to have a good lie you can rely on.
Oh, it's always fun. We'll talk again next week.
Hey, Mike, I do plan on being here again next Thursday, but I've been warned if I watch the Blue Jays and my blood pressure soars, my anxiety continues, they're going to keep me in that intensive care unit.
You take care of yourself and just no Blue Jays. Take 2 days off of watching Blue Jays and then call me in the morning or something like that.
Dr. Mike, we'll talk soon.
Bye, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Gary Chalk is the humor columnist that writes Living Retired. He joins us every Thursday morning, bringing the column to life on our show. You can find it online, livingretired.press. While you're there, sign up for the weekly newsletter and have it delivered directly to your inbox. I know Jocelyn did that last week. She enjoyed the conversation so much. And if you like what you hear, you can hear more of Gary. Find him again at livingretired.press. And he is happy to speak to your group, be it a corporate event or a service club or whatnot. Entertaining perspective for sure, and talking about those living retired days as he does on the show every Thursday morning at 10:30. Something else we do on Thursdays every week is what we call the Flipside, which is just a break from some of the heavier stuff. We have some fun. And I don't know, this might be a little bit less of a break today because there's some controversy after we had a get-together with friends on the weekend. And I don't know, like I know where I stand on this, but clearly there are two sides to it and there's a little bit of a conflict. The long and the short of it is this. If you are at somebody else's home and you break something, are you responsible for paying to replace what was broken? So I'll give you the whole backstory about the unfortunate events from the past weekend coming up on the Flipside at 11:30. And after our next update from the 570 News Center, it's the first Thursday of the month, and that makes it a Throwback Thursday. And we're going to take a look at a building in Uptown Waterloo that has had many a name over its life. Maybe you'll play along with us trivia-wise as we continue the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. This Thursday, the 4th of September, just so happens to be our first Thursday of the month. And on the first Thursday of every month, we are joined by our good friend Jennifer Huber, who is a program and engagement associate at the City of Waterloo Museum for what we call a Throwback Thursday. Jen, great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having the City of Waterloo Museum for Throwback Thursday, where we take a step back in time and uncover fascinating stories about our community's past.
I am so excited for today's conversation because I know a little bit about the building that we're focusing on today. And I've heard so many stories. So I know that when we get you here, Jen, you can help us figure out fact from fiction, and maybe we'll have some fun with trivia along the way too. So to the building itself, many of us, I think, would know it in Uptown Waterloo, but maybe didn't fully understand its historical background, dating back to the 1850s. So what was Waterloo like in the 1850s?
Yeah, I thought I would create a little background on what we know today as the City of Waterloo was like at the time this building was being built. And what we know as the City of Waterloo was actually not even the village of Waterloo just yet. It's in the 1850s that they're on the cusp of becoming the village of Waterloo. This means they're doing things like growing their population. They are establishing a need and a local government system. They're also looking to set up secondary industries and businesses to fuel this new village that they're hoping to establish. So in the 1850s, Waterloo's population is just crossing over 400 people. If you can imagine, compared to today's 150,000 or so that we're approaching. The size of Waterloo is around 1,800 acres. And that means it's really about 24 streets that's making up our Waterloo at that time, if folks can even imagine going back to that.
Incredible. We just had the mayor of Waterloo on the show earlier today, and she talked about the 50,000 students that come in every year. You're talking a village almost of 400 people. Now we're talking about 50,000 students coming in.
I know, quite impressive. So it's in that kind of small town community that's establishing itself as a village that we're bringing our attention to 77 King Street North. It was part of that idea that they were establishing some of these secondary businesses and industries. So here you're looking for things like shops and trades and factories. And today folks will know that building as the pub on King.
I know it well. I think I know one of its former names as well, but I know we're going to get to that. So what was the original purpose, Jen, of this building at 77 King Street North, which is there at King and Bridgeport, right on the corner there? And it was built in 1856. So what can you tell us about its original purpose?
So it was originally built by Jacob Duchin, at the time in 1856, and he was building it on the corner as today you know it as King and Bridgeport, but when he built it, it was King and Cedar Street.
Wait,
no. Previous name.
That's in Kitchener. Sorry, I don't believe. Okay, King and Cedar in Waterloo. I get you.
Yes, we did rename the streets. You're not wrong. That's a process that happens in the 1950s, but on this corner of King and Cedar Street, as it was, he opened up a blacksmith shop. Now, most folks think of blacksmiths, the handymen that were working with metal clergy. They were doing things like fixing farm tools and implements. They were working on household items to repair them and continue them. But the most important thing that we're seeing from our blacksmith around this time is the shoeing of horses. Now, the first blacksmith that owned this shop was Mr. M. Stricker, and he was quite well known as a blacksmith, as it would seem. He is known for his fine farrier skills, and so fine that he actually did the Seagram's racing horses in the 1890s.
I remember talking about those race horses several segments ago when we were looking at the history of Waterloo with you.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun fact. And at the time that Stricker sold the business, Joseph Seagram was coming off of 3 King's Plate wins. So a pretty big time to be known as Joseph E. Seagram's farrier at that time. And it was purchased by the Hughes family. Christian Hughes was the man who purchased it. He bought it for $3,000, and he bought it with its good reputation and its building and facilities already set up for a blacksmith. Lucky for him, his son was an up-and-coming blacksmith, William Hughes, who was thought to be quite talented of a blacksmith. And it would appear so because he carried on his blacksmith shop into the 1920s.
Okay, now, I don't know a lot, but I do know that blacksmithing is one of those lost arts or those trades that disappeared because, obviously, we're getting around in different ways. So blacksmiths kind of started to phase out. So let's look at that building then, because clearly it wasn't going to be a blacksmith shop forever. How did 77 King North kind of reflect the changing needs of our community as we transition from the 19th into the 20th centuries?
You are absolutely right. And like most black shops, it actually transitioned into caring for automobiles. So what happens at 77 King Street North is that it becomes a garage and a general repair shop. Now, the 2 gentlemen who run it for the most part is Vernon Bowman. He runs the garage side of the shop. And Vernon is actually very active in our community for quite a while. He's an alderman and eventually becomes a mayor in the 1950s. And then the repair side was Alan Clemmer. He was known for having, good quality handyman skills to fix a variety of things. Now, this building transitions in the late 20s and into the 30s, right at the time that Canadians are starting to become more automobile users. They're the 3rd highest car ownership per capita starting at the close of the 1920s. So it seems like a pretty good business model as they approach it in the 1930s there.
Okay, so we know this building today. Well, wait a minute. If it was at one point, like when you're talking about automotive, how does Canadian Tire fit into this somewhere? It's more than just tires at Canadian Tire,
It was. And in the 1950s, when Canadian Tire opens its Waterloo station there, it is still focusing heavily on automobiles, but Canadian Tire is also focusing on outdoor leisure and sporting goods around this time. And sporting goods, if you look at Waterloo's history, we've had a ton of incredible athletes. So I think that takes care of itself. And then outdoor leisure, the idea that we're having suburbs popping up, people are having backyards, gatherings there. And we're seeing a huge increase in national park and provincial park use. So by the time we hit the 1960s, just 10 years into this Canadian Tire, we're seeing 5.5 million visitors heading to our park system. So this idea that there's this need to fuel this outdoor leisure, Canadian Tire is definitely capitalizing on that. And they are running that business in there until the 1970s, when I believe they're running out of space. That piece of property, it's not a whole lot of room to expand. And if you're growing your audience, you're going to need room to grow.
It's funny, running out of space, because I was thinking, could you imagine, given Canadian Tire stores today and where they're located, could you imagine a Canadian Tire store, a modern day Canadian Tire at the corner of King and Bridgeport and Waterloo? No. There would not be space. All right. Jennifer Huber is with us. She is a program and engagement associate with the City of Waterloo Museum. It's the first Thursday of the month. That means this is a Throwback Thursday. So if the Canadian Tire store closes at King and Bridgeport in Waterloo in 1970, what did it turn into next? And How did we respond to that as a community? We're going to get into some trivia as well. So stay with us as we continue this Throwback Thursday on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a Throwback Thursday on the show. First Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Jennifer Huber, a program and engagement associate with the City of Waterloo Museum. We're talking today about what we know as the Pub on King, 77 King Street North in Uptown Waterloo, corner of King and Bridgeport. But what we have learned so far is, first of all, it wasn't always King and Bridgeport. That used to be King and Cedar until the 1950s or so when all these names got changed. Now King and Cedar is in Kitchener. Don't even get me started on the confusion there. This was originally a blacksmith's shop turned into an automotive garage, then a Canadian Tire, which closed in 1970. So, Jen, what comes next, and how did we feel about the end of Canadian Tire and the next thing at King and Bridgeport?
You're absolutely right. We welcome the new decade of the 70s with a new vision, new owners, and a new idea. So they were trading in their consumer retail business, and they were looking to get into food and drink services. Now, when these new owners took over and they applied for a liquor license, an advertisement went out in the local newspaper and said, "Does anybody oppose this? We're having a local meeting about it." And I'm guessing you can guess how those results go, knowing that today it's Pub on King. There was very little, from what I could tell, reaction to a pub opening up on today's corner of King and Bridgeport Road there. So what I thought was really fun is that there's been a number of different establishments on that location. So I thought you and the listeners might be able to play a little trivia game with me as to if this was the name of a restaurant, pub, or establishment at that location from the 70s till now. Are you up for it?
I'm absolutely up for it. I'm almost positive I know, and another one I think I vaguely know. So let's go. Let's try this.
Okay, so we'll start easy. Over the 50 years, was this location ever called Pub on King?
That's what it is today, so I'm going to say yes.
Awesome. Okay. Wild Joker's Restaurant.
Okay. So this is where I'm going to, because I have in my head that there was something Joker in there at some point. But you know what? But I don't remember the exact name. But Joker, I feel like Joker was something. But since the first answer was right, I'm going to say this one's not.
Believe it or not, this one is right. And this is what I know. Opened with in 1971. How about Mini Lulu's? Is that a name of one of the places here?
I have no idea. I'm going to say no.
You're right.
Okay.
It was not Mini Lulu's. It was a throwback to Lulu's Roadhouse, but I just thought I would throw it in because that's a fun history piece.
It sure is. Great job.
Old English Parlor.
The old OEP. Absolutely. That's the one I'm certain of.
You're right. It was from the 80s until 94. So it was there for quite a while, that's for sure.
Yep.
Okay, the Lou.
Oh. You know what? I think it was it? It was.
So I'm tricky, and there was the Lou, but the Lou is located down in where the Waterloo Hotel is, still on King Street, but right on the corner of King and Herb is where the Lou was located.
All right.
Circus room. So I did pick some tricky ones to throw in there.
You got me. Okay.
The Duke of Waterloo. Now, most people are familiar with the Duke of Wellington, but the Duke of Waterloo.
No.
It was 1979.
Come on. I was going to say there's only one Duke. We all know the Duke on King Street now. But okay, the Duke of Waterloo back in 79.
Only one Duke that lasted. How's that?
That's right. That's got the staying power. By the way, get the Big Ben burger. Sorry, I have to throw that. I love the Big Ben from the Duke.
And this might be the one you were thinking of, Joker's Two Taverns.
Again, something Jokers, right? So I might have gone that way. But that was not a name, or was a name? It was. So there were two different Joker names to that building.
Yeah, and both in the 70s, so not even far apart. So I don't know. They must have really liked it.
Okay.
The Ruby Room.
I'm going to say no to that one. That sounds like what used to be at the old Waterloo Inn.
It is. You're right.
Is?
That's
Okay.
where I got the one.
All right.
Paddy Flaherty's Irish Pub.
Paddy Flaherty's Irish Pub. I'm going to go no on that one.
It was in the early 2000s for about 2 years.
Really? Wow.
I know, kind of cool. The Fox and the Fiddle.
No.
It was the Fox and the Fiddle. That's what I remember it as.
Wait a minute. Of course it was. Now, why am I thinking of that on University Avenue, though? Okay. Yeah, the Fox and the Fiddle. Of course it was.
Yeah, and the last one is the Country Corner.
The country? No. Come on. Not from 1970. Waterloo was a bustling metropolis. Don't trick me again, Jennifer Huber.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, my
it was
God.
the late 70s.
Really? The Country Corner. That is a lot of names for one little pub on King.
Over those 50 years, it is quite impressive how many different establishments have made its way through its doors, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. So one of the things that I was really interested in, not just I had no idea there were that many names to this, but I knew something about Jokers. I remember the OEP for sure. And now that you reminded me, yes, of course, the Fox and Fiddle. But I've heard some pretty wild stories, Jen, about this place. And I don't know, I don't know if there were any hauntings or anything like that. But what can you tell us about some stories from this building?
So all I can say is I've never personally witnessed any of them, but I did dig up a few old newspaper clippings that indicated that there might have been some mysterious or odd, unusual happenings inside this building. So when it was the Old English Parlor, one of the stories that came out from that 80s to 90s time period is that staff made claims that every so often beer caps would come flying off the counter, off of the rails and places like that at the staff members. Other notes were that there were strange noises that frequently occurred while there was few people inside the building. Now, like many, you could be skeptical, and one staff person in particular was quite skeptical of it. However, after working quite a few late night shifts and experiencing some of these oddities themselves, they changed their mind and they thought, yep, there is something unusual about this particular pub. So I don't know if any of the other listeners out there have heard stories or experiences, but I have a hunch as to where this might have come from.
Okay.
So doing some digging, taking us back to the beginning of the story in the 1800s, there was a blacksmith who worked in this shop. His name was Jack Bertowski, and his nickname, which is probably my favorite part of the story, is Hammer Jack. I mean, can you get a better nickname?
Great nickname. Absolutely.
And he had some mysterious circumstances surrounding his death. The only thing that was confirmed is he was found deceased inside that particular building. But nobody knows how it happened. Was it a murder? Was it a cold case? Is it one of those unsolved pieces of our history? Was it, a death by suicide? We're just so unsure. But that is the spirit that some people chalk up to keeping this building, let's say, active when the other spirits aren't flowing inside it.
I'll tell you what, speaking of those other spirits, Jen, if anybody needs to get to the bottom of this in and around Halloween, spend the night at the pub on King, okay? I hereby volunteer my services. Just leave me the keys to the taps and we'll be fine, okay? I might not be at work the next day, but I'm willing to get to the bottom of this mystery for us here.
So kind.
All right, before I let you go, I know the Lumen Festival is coming up in Waterloo. I want to get a little bit of information about that.
Yeah, so it's happening on September 20th. It happens in the Uptown Waterloo core between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. I will be there with the City of Waterloo Museum, and we'll be looking at some other historic trades that have been hallmarks in Waterloo's past. So specifically, I will be looking at coopering and cooperages in Waterloo's past with a mix of art, light, and technology.
Can we bring everybody together that comes and learns about coopering? Because that's barrel making, right? Yeah. So and let's rebuild the pyramid for Urban Caroline. They won't mind over there at CG. It'll be fine. We'll just put it there again.
It's not like there's a driveway that would get in the way. What could go wrong?
I got all kinds of great ideas today, Jen, as you can tell. As always, thanks for being here. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for taking the trip down memory lane with the City of Waterloo Museum. You can visit us in person at Conestoga Mall. We're open Tuesdays to Fridays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Or you can come online and explore some of our local at-home exhibits there. See you at Lumen otherwise, but until next time, keep the past alive.
September 20th, Lumen in Uptown Waterloo. That is 2 weeks this coming Saturday, if I've got my math right on that. So 2 weeks Saturday, September 20th, Lumen in Uptown Waterloo. Jennifer Huber is a program and engagement associate with the City of Waterloo Museum. She joins us on the first Thursday of every month for a little bit of a Throwback Thursday where we explore this region's rich history. And it's something we do on the first Thursday of every month here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. That was a lot of fun on Throwback Thursday, wasn't it? Thinking back to the long history of that building at the corner of King and Bridgeport in Uptown Waterloo. It's now the pub on King, but so many other things and so much history around that corner and that building. We do Throwback Thursdays on the first Thursday of every month with our friends at the City of Waterloo Museum. And every Thursday at 11:30, we get a break from some of the heavier stuff on the show and have a little bit of fun on the flip side. I don't know, though, this might be... I feel like, look, there's some controversy. I'll just put it that way, okay? And I think I know what side I'm on in this, but there are definitely two sides to the argument/story. And so I thought I would bring it to you because you always help me figure things out. And you perhaps could help us all, because there's a group involved here, get moving in the right direction. So I'll give you the backstory here. And as usual, names will be left out to protect the innocent, although I might be the less innocent one by the end of this, because I'm sure my friends know who they are. But anyway, we all had a great get-together on the long weekend. A group of us got together at a friend's place to play some games, have a couple of drinks, have some laughs, the last long weekend of summer, blah, blah, blah. So we're all sitting around, and there were enough of us that our friends who were hosting, had to find the extra pieces of furniture, right, to bring out and make sure everybody had a place to sit. And one of these pieces of furniture was an older antique chair that belonged to a grandmother, or had belonged. It was kind of passed down. So, I think you could understand the sentimental value of such a piece of furniture. And so anyway, that's one of the pieces of furniture that's out, and we're all having a good time, and everything's going great until said piece of furniture, the antique chair, broke as somebody was sitting on it. Now, imagine being that somebody. First and foremost, can we just take a moment to pause for the sheer embarrassment of the person who was sitting in the antique chair when it broke beneath her? Okay, so there's that part of this, but it happened. And after a couple of seconds of shock, there was, oh my gosh, help her up, everything's fine. And then the couple who were hosting are like, you know what? This isn't a big deal. This is an old chair. It's been known to come apart before. We've pieced it back together. Don't worry about it. And so that was it. Other than the shock, and there was no injury, and then the busted pieces of the chair were removed, and she sat on the floor. Everything was fine, and we go on with our evening. So what I have found out since, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, is that the hosting couple have asked for compensation to the tune of $250, I might add, for the busted chair. And our friend who was sitting in said chair is like, well, you said this happens before. This has happened before, and you've put it back together. Yeah, but this time it broke differently or whatever, and now, we have to find something similar to replace it because of the sentimental value, which I don't even know how that really tracks, because the original chair would have the value, right? Because it came down from grandma. But whatever. I don't think that tracks necessarily, but the bottom line is you were sitting in the chair when it broke. You owe us $250 so that we can replace the chair and presumably replace the sentimental value that's attached to it. And our friend who was in the chair when it broke is like, I don't think I have to pay you $250. And so, go pound some salt. So this is kind of where we're stuck. And I don't know if pounding salt was actually recommended here, but the bottom line is the couple wants the $250. The person who had been sitting in the chair says, I'm not giving you $250. And now we have ourselves a bit of a situation, don't we? And what was otherwise a fun night right up until we all left and everybody was happy and hugging and smiling and off we went until this came about. So I thought I would ask you, and maybe you could help us sort this out. Do you owe for that chair that broke because you were the one sitting in it when it broke? I'm on the no side in this regard because a couple of reasons. First of all, one is that you admitted that this had happened to the chair before and you have reassembled it in the past. So technically, you were sitting on flawed furniture to begin with. That's point number one in all of this. Point number two is it's not as though she was doing anything different or, anything to the chair that would have caused it to break. This wasn't somebody getting drunk, jumping into a chair or bouncing up and down or using, trying to shuffle the chair across a floor while sitting in it, anything like that. Didn't pick it up and use it as a wrestling maneuver and try to hit somebody with it. Like, there was no negligence on the part of the person sitting in the chair. She was just sitting there and it broke beneath her weight. So it could have been our hosts sitting on that particular chair and it would have broken then. So I'm like, you don't ask for the money in a situation like that. Like, it literally could have happened to anybody. It might have happened the next time you were sitting in the chair. I say, as hosts, you accept and or assume responsibility for certain things that might happen when you are hosting. You cleaned up after we all left. You might have left it for Sunday morning, but you did the cleanup, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. The closest thing I could think about, and this goes a million years back in my life, but we were at a friend's place, a little get-together, and a chip bowl was broken. It was a glass bowl, got knocked off a couch, broke, and we were asked to pay for the bowl. And I'm like, you know what? Sure. It was also described as, I can't remember what kind of crystal it was. But anyway, I'm like, it didn't shatter like crystal as far as I can tell. But I think I paid them more than the bowl was actually worth. But it was my foot that knocked it down. I felt responsible. It was a bowl. Okay, fine. But in this case, I'm on team chair sitter. I don't think she owes a nickel to the couple who hosted. I think this chair was going to break anyway. It just so happened to be that she was the one sitting in it. Can you help me out on this? Are you on team pay me or team no pay me? 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Lisa, what do you think? Do you have to pay for that chair?
So, two things. I didn't hear at the very beginning, was this the only chair available and that's why this person was using it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, there were so many of us, right? Like, there wasn't enough couches and chairs, whatever. So with the big group, you kind of bring out some folding chairs or whatever, and this was one of the chairs made available.
So as the host, I would say if it's a chair that has broken numerous times in the past, to my knowledge, really wouldn't be a good choice to use. So I would say it's on them to some extent. Now, the flip side of that is if the person who sat on the chair offered to pay for it and they took her up on it after the fact, then I would say that's a really tough call. Like, if I broke something at a friend's place, I would offer to replace it as soon as it happened, no matter what. And I would also make a point of saying, if you decide after, if for some reason you can't fix it, let me know, and I will offer to help you, because I'd feel like crap, obviously, for that happening, no matter what the circumstances are. But I feel like if you're using a piece of furniture that you really shouldn't be having anyone sit on. If you know it's been broken numerous times, like don't put someone else in that position. Not only that it could get broken, but that someone could get hurt. You know, I guess as a small business owner too, I always kind of think in the back of my mind, there's some liability issues there too, that not even just as your business, but your homeowner's insurance could come back to you and say, look, this person broke their ankle sitting on your chair. You know, your homeowner's insurance is going to have to cover some of that. So I don't know. It's a tough call. I would say they're both kind of in the right and they're both kind of in the wrong. The problem becomes, is this going to ruin a friendship? So as the person who sat in the chair, maybe they can meet them halfway.
Yeah, you know what? Interesting point, Lisa. Maybe a compromise there, because on the friendship side, you're right. Like, is $250 worth ruining a friendship? But if you're the one paying the $250, you might be resentful. Like, I paid you $250 because I sat in the faulty chair. Lisa's onto something there, though, too. Maybe you say, okay, I'll give you the $250, but you're paying my physio bills because I hurt my lower back when I fell out of your chair. I don't know. Sean, who pays who?
You just nailed it. That's exactly what I was going to say. I'd say, hey, you know what? As a chair setter, I'll agree to pay your $250 if you don't mind paying the $5,000 medical bill I've got from my sciatica and my lower back pain.
There you go.
Yeah, I firmly agree with you. I don't think there's really any gray area here at all. You hosted an event. You put a person in a liable situation with a chair that already was less than sturdy, obviously, if it broke before. And I'm of the belief, just as you are, that person was put into a difficult spot, sitting on a chair that was ultimately probably destined to break eventually anyway. If it wasn't her, it was someone else.
I'm with you 100%, Sean. Appreciate that call and thoughts on that. That's exactly it, right? And when you host, when you invite people over, I think you are assuming a certain level of responsibility, liability for, like I said, the mess you clean up afterwards, whatever. And this wasn't negligence. It was somebody sitting in a chair that you provided to them. Like, come on. Mike, what do you say?
It's ridiculous to ask somebody to pay for a chair because the host is responsible for the safety of all the guests. I think so. Here's an example. We have a chair that my wife found, and we had it repaired, and it's you wouldn't want a big person sitting in it because it will get wrecked if they lean back. So when we had family over, we moved it out of the way so nobody sits in it because we know we don't want it wrecked. It was a valuable chair. So really the host is something selfish is going on with the host. That's what's annoying. I did. The liability part was funny too. So put the third option on, sue them.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. You know, you mentioned the leaning back. I'm gonna throw another friend under the bus too, and because again, this wasn't negligence on the part of the woman sitting in the chair. She wasn't doing anything other than sitting. Another buddy, when he comes to my place, he's constantly leaning back in this one chair. I'm like, can you not do that? Because we all know that there's possibility there. And even if he did break the chair, which then I would say it's kind of on him for using the chair inappropriately, so to speak, but I'm not going to send him a bill for the chair. I'm just not going to do that. But I don't know. I wish it wasn't this way. And it seems like we're kind of all on team no pay here. We'll see if we can help sort it out. Phil, what do you make of this?
I'll one up your story.
Okay.
Decades ago, there's a house party in the North Ward in Kitchener.
Just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, somebody used the toilet, knocked the tank, and smashed it right off the toilet.
How on earth? See, that doesn't sound like responsible toilet use.
And you know how it was resolved?
How was it resolved?
You keep the empties.
Oh, my gosh.
And everybody left happy.
All right. Well, there you go. Now, that one seems a little bit sus, as the kids would say, though, right? How do you knock the tank off the toilet? But I'll just... North Ward and Kitchener. If you know, you know. Back in the day. We'll take a break, come back with more of your calls. Should you pay for the chair that broke while you were sitting in it? Or is it really the host's assumption of liability when they have people over? This is the flip side on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It's always fun until somebody loses an eye, or in this case, breaks a chair. We were all having a good time at a friend's place on the weekend. Lots of people around. You pull out lots of different pieces of furniture to make sure everybody has a place to sit. And one of the chairs being sat upon broke as the person was sitting on it. They weren't doing anything other than sitting. And the night went on, and everybody was fine and still laughing and having a good time. But since that time, our friends who had been hosting said to the person who was sitting in the chair when it broke, "You owe us $250 for the broken chair." A little twist to the story is that this chair had broken in the past and they had reassembled it. When it broke that night on Saturday, they're like, "Don't worry, this happens. We'll just put it back together again." So I'm thinking, well, you had a faulty chair to begin with here. And now we got this controversy going on because our friend who was sitting in the chair, she doesn't want to pay for it. I was just sitting there. Now, Jen Tan, who is our board operator today, answering your calls, she's got an interesting theory. She thinks the hosts put the chair out on purpose so it would break and they could claim $250. That's sneaky. I don't have friends like that, Jen. I don't have friends like that. Gary Chalk emails me, mike@570news.com. Call 1-800-BROKE-CHAIR. Jeff's email, no way. I'm not paying for that chair. Diane says, definitely not. The chair had already been broken. Never mind the fact she was given the chair to sit on, even though the hosts knew it was compromised. And Annie says the person who fell should sue for being placed in a faulty chair. Let's go back to the phones and get more thoughts from you. Sean, who's paying for this chair?
Team no pay all the way, Mike. No pay all the way. As you said, the chair broke. The individual did not break the chair.
Exactly.
Broken chair.
Right.
The culprit's the chair, not the person that's in the chair. So there's no way that they can be expected to pay. Think of it this way. I know you're at a social setting, but if you're at a restaurant and you sit down and your chair breaks, the restaurant's not asking for it. If you're at a doctor's office in the waiting room and the chair breaks, there's no way they're asking. If you're at our beloved Kitchener Memorial Auditorium and a seat collapses, do you think Joe Birch is coming knocking on your shoulder and saying, "Hey, you got to pay for my seat"? It's never happening. You're supposed to provide a functional seat for someone if you invite them into wherever you are. They didn't do that. This is 100% on the host.
All right. That's a pretty clear answer from Sean. And just for the record, Birchie would come to me for money. He'd be like, Farwell, I mean, we've given you so much. You owe us for that chair. But those are some really good examples, right? In what other situation would you be expected to pay for the chair that broke just because you were sitting in it? George, what do you think?
Yeah, Mike, every year I'm invited out to a Blackhawks Maple Leaf night every year at this one guy's house. And what do you know? I don't know if it's because I'm a Blackhawks fan. Every year it's that same faulty chair he gives me. It feels like it's going to break any minute.
He's waiting for it to break so he can ask you for $250.
Maybe. And, I can't even jump up the chair when the Blackhawks score. Maybe that's another reason. That chair ever breaks, I am not paying a penny because he's the host. He's providing me a chair, and that's what I'm going to say.
All right, George, appreciate that. I love this email from Bill to Mike at 570news.com. I'd pay the $250 and then I'd get new friends. Hey, Bill, those are my friends you're talking about too. Maybe I'll just call them acquaintances. Grant, what do you think?
It's a no-brainer Judge Judy case. Judge Judy would say, no, nobody, it's the owner that put this party on. They pay the $250, and I don't know. Yeah, I guess this person is kind of a pricky person.
Wait a minute, Grant. There are certain words that we don't say on the radio. I think he said prickly, and also, I love the reference to Judge Judy, a no-brainer Judge Judy case. Paul, what do you think?
Now, you go to Aberfoyle on a Sunday to the Aberfoyle Antique Market. You walk through there, you find a similar chair, you pay $5 for it, and you take it back and you say, "Here you go.
Here's your $250 chair." Paul, I like your thinking on that. Get a good deal at the Aberfoyle Market.
Yeah, because just because somebody thinks it's worth, actually at Aberfoyle Market, you're going to find somebody who's going to have a $5 chair, and they think it's worth $250 too. Don't buy that one.
Just be careful when you go to the Aberfoyle market, because I'm pretty ding-dang sure you're going to have to go down the road with the speed camera, and you might get a $250 or more speeding ticket.
Oh, gotta love those speed cameras since you're raising it again.
Well, I had to. I mean, it just seemed to fit. But I kind of so I loved Bill's email, pay the $250 and then get new friends. And I like what Paul's thinking too. Okay, I'll replace the chair for you, but I'll go find you the quote unquote antique chair. And it ain't going to cost me $250. It seems as though we are all on team no pay, no way. Dear friends who have been left nameless out of consideration for your innocence, drop the charges, okay? Don't ask her for $250. It's a little bit offside. I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then your Talkback Hour begins, and I want to go back to talk about something we didn't get to talk about earlier today because we got into road issues, which is totally fine. We can take whatever direction, but I do want to direct the conversation around community safety and violent crime because the mayor of Vaughan had some interesting things to say that I think we'll respond to coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
It is our daily open line hour here on the show. Numbers to reach us, just as a quick reminder, 519-570-2545, star 570 by cell, or long distance toll free 1-800-570-5715. There's something I want to talk to you about when it comes to violent crimes and our responses to them. But honestly, believe it or not, even though I do tend to ramble at times, okay, I ramble often, and it is a show that I get to host. I don't want to dominate or direct the conversation. If you want to talk about something, I always want to give you the first opportunity. So we've got some folks on the line already, and I want to start with you, and we'll see where we go. And if we can come back to my thing, we'll come back to it. But your things are more important than my things. And I can always come back to mine another time when time permits. So let's just start with Jim on Talkback. Good afternoon, Jim.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you today?
If I was any better, I'd have to be twins today.
Attaboy.
In regard to your broken chair incident there, I believe the people are not responsible for paying a $250 bill. But I do think you have a definite candidate for jackwagging jail.
Now, wait, Jim, I'm putting my own friends into jackwagging jail here. Is that what you're telling me?
That's right. And if you don't do the crime, if you can't do the time. So.
I absolutely love it. Jim, if we had a prize for call of the day, that's up there. Just like Bill's email, I'd spend the $250 and then get new friends. But I like it. Don't do the crime if you don't want to do the time in jackwagon jail. Afif, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. You know how we're like this Mike Farwell Force Life?
Farwell's Force, yes.
Yeah, let's go with that. I was thinking, if you need any help, let's just say, getting something fixed, you can just have everybody go out and do a protest for you.
If we need something fixed, all of Farwell's Force, which is now 161 members strong, will all go out and do a protest, a mass protest.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, fix if they want to get rid of the speed cameras, we can do that.
I like this. Afif, why did your phone suddenly start sounding better?
I guess I'm driving in a better space now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds so much clearer now. And listen, one thing I do want to get fixed is you called yesterday about a photo radar ticket you got, and you said it was like $90 for going 3 over. I think you got to check that ticket again, Afif. There's no way you got a ticket that big for that much speeding.
I mean, I got it at home, so
Okay, you go double check it, because that sounds like a big ticket.
Yeah. Thankfully.
All right, thanks for the call today. We were talking yesterday about, shockingly, speed cameras and who had the lowest threshold. And Afif said he was going 3 over, or was it 4? But either way, and then a $90 ticket. I can't see that being the case. I'm not even sure you'd get one at 3 or 4 over, but that's what I was curious about. I've heard of the 11 or 12 over, doing 41 or a 42 and a 30. Not the speeders we're looking for. But anyway, I think Afif had some bad information yesterday. Andre, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Sun just came out. Nice. So, a couple of things, but I'm going to try and make it simple to my best since I've been with you for 6 years, I think. Thanks, Mike. For one, I agree with all the callers that parallel example. If I pass you and you say, hey, I'd like to go to the store, can I borrow your car? And, my car, like back in the days, very old, rusty, and it's almost smoky. It's old, right? And you go to the store and finally the radiator blows up, sees the motor and all that stuff, and you call the friend that passed you the car. And you said, yeah, the car finally seized away. It's like, yeah, it's okay, it's old. Or the other person could say, well, I did pay that car thousands of dollars. Now you owe me that, right? So there's really a common sense to it, I think. I would offer, hey, I'll pay you a tow truck since you were nice, right, to bring the car wherever it needs to go, right? So there's a common sense to it and a kind of action, to be kind. I also wanted to tell you, because I never heard it, but, Mike, I did give the bag to Taylor, that is wonderful lady at the Memorial Kitchener Ranger.
So you gave me the beer and the chocolate bar?
Yeah, I was standing there the whole time. I was very afraid because I'm blind, right? I'm visually impaired, and I didn't want to misbehave like I do on the phone, right? Because you're very nice, very kind. You're a great person in the community, Mike. And so that was just, to me, a kind of action that you like your beer, you like your sweetness, and just to say hi. And you got me out of the house. That's why I told you when I gave you a handshake. You got me out of the house.
Why didn't you give me the bag when we shook hands?
I wanted to make sure that you were getting it because you're hard to get, right? You're busy.
But we shook hands. Oh, so you gave it to Taylor before we shook hands?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Andre, thank you very much.
The beer store. I don't know much about beer. I'm learning Lakers from my wife. I'm more of a one, But anyway, the beer store on Highland and Highland and Fisher Hellman. I told him, I was like, well, I know you don't have the Kitchen Ranger beer, right? Because that's where I'm going. Like, I'm so excited. I said, do you have something that's about hockey? And they gave me that. And they give me a 12 pack. I was like, whoa, I'm not giving them 12. So you guys have a great day, Mike. I love your show.
All right. Thank you, Andre. Listen, I have 2 favorite kinds of beer, cold and free. So you nailed it with one of my favorite kinds of beer. Thank you for bringing 2 cans of Daryl Sittler 10-point lager to FanFest on Sunday and dropping it off for me, along with a chocolate bar in the same bag. I had no idea who had dropped that off, and now I know it's Andre. Bless your heart, my friend. Francis, good afternoon. You're on Talkback.
Good afternoon. I had asked for a song request. I didn't know she was going to put me on, but I'm also really with you as far as that broken chair. Well, that's just stupidity on my part. But anyways, I was listening to an Alan Jackson run-through, and he had a great song that was put out, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. From 9/11, right?
Or 9/11, yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can hear that sometime.
All right, Francis. Thank you very much for the call. God bless, as Francis usually signs his calls off with. On the All Request Friday front, because we have spent so much time today, this week, talking about issues on our roads and our concerns about them, your theme for All Request Friday tomorrow is modes of transportation. It can be a song about a car, a plane, a bicycle, a scooter, you name it, a go-kart, a racehorse. Yeah, Horses are modes of transportation. You're riding through the desert on a horse with no name, for example. Modes of transportation. That is your theme for All Request Friday tomorrow. You can drop me an email, mike@570news.com, or when you call in to talk to Jen, when she answers the phone, just let her know your song request, or just call her right now and give her a request. You can do it that way too. Modes of transportation. Okay, just before we take a break, and then maybe you can think about it during this quick break and let me know how you react to what you're about to hear. The reason that this comment struck me, and they come from the mayor of Vaughan, who is Stephen Del Duca, who so happens to be a former leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. And I don't care at this point what you thought of him as a leader or what you think of Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, Green, Rhinoceros, doesn't matter. But what strikes me with these comments you're about to hear is that I'm old enough to remember a time where these sorts of issues were drawn pretty clearly along political lines. Mandatory minimum sentences, for example, something brought in by federally conservative governments, and Liberals were not fond of them, right? And we talk about the tough on crime agenda. Remember Pierre Poilievre's campaign, Axe the Tax, Fight the Crime, right? Very much seen as a conservative idea. Tough on crime, mandatory minimum sentences, etc. But you've heard Liberal Prime Minister Mark Carney allude to the need for some bail reform, so certainly seems open to it. You've heard Ontario Premier Doug Ford, a Conservative, talk about thugs and the revolving door in our court system that needs to be stopped because people get out on bail, they reoffend, they go back in. It's just constant. So remember that the mayor of Vaughan, Stephen Del Duca, is a former Ontario Liberal leader. And now listen to what he has to say about that awful story from Kleinburg in York Region, where Vaughan is, just north of Toronto, where an innocent man was shot during a home invasion. This is what Mayor Stephen Del Duca had to say.
When we hear the information, there's a strong sense that something has gone wrong. Now, I have repeatedly, alongside my council colleagues, called out the other levels of government over the last number of months on issues that range from auto theft to home break-ins to business break-ins to home invasions to carjackings. Despite our best efforts at the local level, we still have to contend with what we saw just a couple of nights ago that happened unfairly and tragically to Aleem and his family. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Beyond the investments that we are trying our best to make at the local level, there is something more fundamental that is broken in our system right now. I understand from media reports that Prime Minister Carney and his cabinet are in fact in the GTA as we speak, having cabinet discussions about all of the important priorities that the federal government has in front of them. And I understand it. There's lots for them to tackle, dealing with President Trump, dealing with tariffs, dealing with so much more. I don't know what's on their agenda, but I have to say, if this topic, fixing the criminal justice system once and for all, so that victims rather than criminals are protected, so that we don't have, as it's being called, the revolving door of criminals who are arrested and then back out on bail, sometimes the same day, to offend repeatedly, again, whether that's vehicle break-ins or home break-ins or carjackings or whatever it is. If this issue, this item is not on their agenda, well, then they've badly lost the plot.
They've badly lost the plot. A former Ontario Liberal Party leader. Something is fundamentally broken. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. We need to protect victims, not those who are accused of the crimes. It sounds to me like the political lines are beginning to blur when it comes to these situations, the home invasions, the carjackings, the armed robberies, etc. I'm getting the sense, and I think about this as somebody who does the job that I do. We're talking about these stories an awful lot. Are there more of them, or are we just talking about them more? I don't know. I don't want to I don't want to be irresponsible in our conversations or our reporting, but it certainly feels to me like these kinds of stories are coming up again and again and again. There was another story, same night, not far away from where this man was shot in Kleinburg, where 3 people had started breaking into a home and an alarm went off and there was screaming inside the home and they took off. And police aren't yet linking the two, but my goodness gracious, like these things are happening in our communities, right? That brazen robbery at an LCBO right here in our community. I feel like we are uniting, regardless of political stripe, on the idea that we're not being tough enough on crime. So I'm just wondering from your perspective, like, are you noticing this blurring of the lines? Do you feel as though we are being too soft or not hard enough on crime? How do you interpret these stories? I was curious to get your thoughts on that today, and maybe you want to share them with me here on Talkback. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Let's get back to the phones and your thoughts on violent crimes and our responses of late to them. Marino on the phone. Good afternoon, Marino.
Hey, Mike. Not about violent crimes, but I just want to wish both the Rangers and the Storm luck in their bid for the Memorial Cup. I have no doubt that both organizations will put forth a first-class bid. But 2027 is the City of Guelph's 200th birthday. It would be a great part of the celebration. And secondly, 1963, our Guelph Royals moved to Kitchener, became the Rangers. So this would be a nice payback.
Marino, I love it. Thank you for that. And thank you again to Mr. Eugene George, who facilitated that move from Guelph to here in Kitchener and brought us the Rangers. I know it's the late Mr. Eugene George, but his family is still around, and we're grateful to them for that gift to this community. I love where Marino is coming from. Oh, the irony, eh? The Highway 7 rivals are now the Memorial Cup hosting rivals, Guelph and Kitchener. And Marino makes a great point. I think that's a huge selling feature for Guelph in this as a market, the 200th anniversary of the city. I like our chances, though. Boy, have you met the grand old dame on East Avenue, as I call the Memorial Auditorium? It's a beautiful building, the best in the league as far as I'm concerned. I think that is number one on the list of why we should host. But nonetheless, appreciate that, Marino. And I, too, wish the city of Guelph luck. It's a fine community full of fine people for sure. Love them. Especially those botters. Let me tell you about those botters over there working at the Sleeman Center. Anyway, back to the phones. Randy, good afternoon.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
Hello, Randy. I'm well, thank you. And you?
Very well, thanks.
Good.
I just want to have a little conversation about all with the stuff that happened in Vaughan, that home invasion, and then you have the 80-year-old woman downtown Guelph who was assaulted. Now she's actually passed away.
Yes, awful story.
Then you have the story in Welland with a 3-year-old who was sexually assaulted and choked. And then you have the story in Windsor with the fire that was set on a family of 5. It's just getting to the point of just being ridiculous. And quite honestly, I would rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
We've heard that recently on the show, Randy.
Yeah, it's just getting to the point of it's no longer safe. You're no longer safe in your home. You're no longer safe walking on the street. Your children aren't safe. And it's going to have to come to the point where we're just going to have to, fight back. Because that's really the only option, because our federal government, they really don't care. The Liberal government doesn't care. Doug is, saying all sorts of stuff on mainstream media, to make himself feel better. I'm sure he had one of his trucks was tried to be stolen.
Right out of his driveway.
Property.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's happening to everybody, but it's got to stop. And I think that the consequences have to be for these home invasions, for violent crime, things like that. We need to have a violent, serious consequences to counteract and maybe change a few people's minds and attitudes about doing it again.
Yeah, Randy, listen, I hear where you're coming from. I'm reluctant to go too far down the road of taking matters into your own hands because two wrongs don't make a right, right? And like, I get where you're coming from because you feel as though you are being let down by the system. I'm with you there, and I'm hearing you there, and I don't disagree that. And I know believe me, I've read the research that stiffer penalties do not necessarily result in stronger deterrence. For whatever reason, they don't. But maybe if the penalties were so stiff for these violent crimes, using a firearm or some other weapon in the commission of an offense, if the penalties were so severe, there won't be a chance to reoffend, right? And I know that sounds a little draconian as well, but I feel as though we're in this place where it's getting awfully frustrating. And Randy lays out a good list, a lengthy list of incidents in southern Ontario in very recent weeks that these things have happened. And it's tough. You want a nation building project, Prime Minister Carney? Maybe you need to build some super jails, and then we could fill them up apparently with the crimes that we're hearing committed. Sharon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm not too bad.
Good.
This topic of crime is really, it's hit me lately. I'm finding in the last couple months, I turn on the news in the morning, and it's not, one shooting, it's multiple shootings, and I'm not going to get into the list. You've gone over that so many times, but I really do think that something needs to happen. You touched on something that I think would be very critical to happen, and that is, what are the stats for each crime? What is the age? And don't shoot me, but are they Canadian citizens? I look at if somebody has had multiple charges and they're not a Canadian citizen, why are we paying to put them in jail, to feed them and look after them? I think they should be deported.
Well, and I think those processes are in place when somebody is not a Canadian citizen, given the severity of a crime, for example. But I don't know that is a huge part in all of this.
Well, and that's where I get back to the stats. If we had the stats and compare that to the population and various different cities, I think that would be important to know. I'd like to see more transparency.
Sure.
I'd like to become more knowledgeable about, the crimes we hear. A while ago, we heard this rash of, the largest bust on guns, on drugs, on this and that. But I get back to the why. Why are we having these crimes?
Well,
relate back to the drugs.
Yeah,
we talk about targeted. A lot of people are targeted, and I understand that, but it's unfortunate that some innocent people are getting caught in between.
I hear where you're coming from, Sharon, and believe me, that data must exist. The stats that you're looking for, the data you're talking about must exist. But to your point of the why, I was giving this some thought too, and I appreciate you jogging my memory because I neglected to mention it before. But the frequency with which we are hearing about these crimes being committed, have we reached that level of desperation already? Because we know it is expensive out there and not getting less expensive tomorrow, right? That we're kind of in this really difficult spot. And so maybe there is that amount of desperation right now on the part of folks who think that their best ticket is to take from somebody who's got more. I don't know. Mike, you're next on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I am very frustrated by our justice system and the obvious flaws we are experiencing right now. I believe for first-time offenders, for non-serious crimes, probation and maybe bail may be appropriate.
Describe a non-serious crime to me.
like theft under $5,000.
Okay.
I am very, very concerned, and Randy listed a whole bunch of crimes, right? And the suspects named in those crimes, right, were charged with breach of probation, breach of parole, breach of bail conditions, right, when they commit those crimes. Now, you mentioned, Mike, that we need nation-building projects. Well, I believe we do too now, because basically for the repeat offenders, the bail violators, the probation violators, we need, if you're going to violate something and you're not going to take your probation seriously, you're going to continue doing drugs, you're going to continue doing whatever, and you're not going to follow your probation rules, you need to end up in jail. And I think nation-building projects should be building more jails, Mike. That's my thoughts.
All right, Mike. I like the idea of rail, quite frankly. Not jail, but rail. However, I was only half joking when I suggested that. Nation-building projects, prisons. Because if Prime Minister Carney is serious about reform within the system, and these calls are continuing to grow louder from, again, across the political spectrum, I don't really see another choice, unless there was a report not too long ago that there were thousands of empty beds within our prison system. But we're backlogged in so many different parts of it. It's just choked right now. Anyway, it's not an overnight solution by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel as though the appetite is there right now. Kathy just disappeared on me. I was just about to hit Kat. Did I actually hang up? I couldn't have because my finger wasn't near that one. If you want to call back, Kathy, I'll put you right at the top of our list as we take a quick break and come back with more Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a busy Talkback hour today. Let's get right back to the phones. Toll-free Jay, good afternoon.
Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year?
What is this evening? Kickoff to the season.
Oh, for the National Football League.
Yes, and I wanted to see if you are interested in participating with Edna in our football pool.
I appreciate the offer, Jay. I haven't the time for football pools, but I will be following along anyway.
I understand, sir. Thank you for your help, and I would like to be listener number 812 instead of 21.
Jay, you can't be switching your number. If I make you 812, we got to somehow get from 161 to 812. That's a lot of numbers to fill in along the way. But you mentioned the National Football League and the season kickoff tonight. I'm wearing my Pittsburgh Steelers golf shirt today. If you're not watching on Rogers TV Cable 20, now you know. And I overheard one of my coworkers whistling the theme, dun, 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 in the hall earlier today. So we are pretty pumped for the kickoff of the NFL tonight. It's a good time of year to be a sports fan, right? The NFL's starting, hockey's pretty close, baseball's heating up with pennant races. Pretty fantastic. Lisa, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon. Lisa. You know, as soon as I picked that up, I knew Lisa wasn't there. Because Lisa is usually in a vehicle and I can hear the wind noise. I could not hear any wind noise. Lisa, like Kathy, if you want to call back, we'll put you right at the top of our list and give you first crack or next crack at a call here. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I like that thing that Mr. Doug Ford did yesterday of pouring out the whiskey.
You like that, eh?
And I also like Lisa, because she seems to be very intelligent. We haven't heard from her since, last week she was on, and weeks past that she wasn't on. That's why you should have her on one of the four panel. Her and Feisty Mary.
Okay, Grant. Lisa and Mary on the Friday 4 one day. Imagine that. And Lisa was able to call us back. Did you hear that, Lisa? Grant says you are intelligent. We need to hear more from you.
Oh, okay. Well, I try to call when I can, and I'm going to change the subject. I don't think we're going to solve the crime problem today, so I'm going to go back to something I thought I should have mentioned when I was talking to Ian Hunter on Blue Jay Hunter. For all of us that watch on TV, I mean, I listen to the game on the radio as much as I can if I'm driving somewhere, but on TV, we have a gem that is doing the broadcast, and Buck Martinez, I think he has made a point of being back this season because he really enjoys what's going on with the team and wants to be there. But I think we ought to take some time and appreciate him, because this from what I understand of his fight right now, this is very likely his last season in the broadcast booth. So I want everyone to make a point of listening to him. He's one of the best broadcasters for the Jays, and we always enjoy listening to him.
Thanks for that, Lisa. It's a great point. I do believe you're right that Buck Martinez is playing out the string, so to speak, in his time in the broadcast booth. And you mentioned the gem that is Dan Schulman. How lucky have we been when it comes to broadcasters for the Toronto Blue Jays? Tom and Jerry, top of the list, right? Tom Cheek, Jerry Howarth, and then transitioning into where we are today. But just incredibly blessed have we been to have such talent broadcasting our baseball team and currently Canada's only baseball team. And yes, Buck is right up there among the best we get. He was so much fun as a player, and dare I say, even better as a broadcaster. Joe, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Going to talk about one of your favorite pet peeves. Cameras, speed cameras.
Oh, come on.
I'm only here once in a while, and I've been pinched twice by these damn cameras.
Well, slow down.
I have advice for your listenership. If you want to get rid of the cameras, get rid of the councillors that voted for the cameras and vote them out. Only vote for the people that have a platform that's focused on getting rid of the cameras, and then you'll get rid of the damn cameras. That's my little advice for everybody who wants to see these cameras gone. Get rid of the people's jobs who voted for them. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Joe. I have said this, although not quite as directly, but I do hope, and frankly, I expect this to be an election issue in a year's time. I do. And Joe is onto something here, because there is no question that there is significant public pushback against the speed camera program. And I don't know if you want to be that person asking for votes from people who are very upset with the program you have implemented. I mentioned earlier when a thief called, because he had called yesterday and talked about getting a ticket for doing 3 or 4 over, and the ticket was $80. And I thought, that doesn't sound like, I think your numbers are off. You should go check that ticket again. I have had an email sent to me with photos of tickets from somebody who wishes to remain anonymous. But yes, tickets times 2, this person has been caught. But the emails to mike@570news.com show clearly that getting caught for 13 over, 53 in a 40. Just imagine 53 kilometers per hour being too fast. 53 in a 40 was $88.25. And then this one I think was 17 over. Let me just see here. The photo doesn't show up perfect on my computer here. So I just got to make sure I get 57 in a 40. Okay. And that was a $113 fine. So 13 over $88, 17 over $113. The tickets come in the mail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just pay your fine. And that's the end of that. The program is flawed on a number of levels, not the least of which the cameras are in operation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's impossible to believe that these cameras are about improving safety in school zones when they are operating outside of school hours. All they are doing is taxing us in a new way. And I get it. I get it. Municipalities are strapped for cash. They're looking for different ways to generate revenue. This is absolutely the latest way to generate revenue, but it's not. And maybe you should just be honest about that then, instead of trying to pass it off as something that's got to do with, quote unquote, safety, because it doesn't. It has to do with finding ways to get more money out of our pockets. And I guess we could just not speed, as others will say. All right, that's about the time we have for our show today, but tomorrow's Friday. That means all requests. Tomorrow, your requests, modes of transportation. You pick the mode. Give us the song that reflects that mode of transportation. Our Friday 4 Roundtable will be here, and lots more on tomorrow's show. I'll be back at 9 tomorrow morning. I hope you'll join me then. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.